Maybe to Owen Abdullah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Sunday, the 21st of June, 2026. This is our 241st Tafseer channel, Tafseer session. We have these weekly sessions where we go through Tafsir al-Quran, and it's followed by followed by question and answers, and then a Palestine update. Also, just as a side note, tomorrow there will be no Tawheed halaqah, and we are fast approaching the end of our Tawheed series, in which case we will move to other subjects. One would likely be Tawheed Hakamiyya after that's finished, so stick around for that. And also, it's very topical. As you may or well be aware, there is a considerable amount of consternation from the Wahhabi Salafi Madkhali camp in reference to Muhammad Hijab and his takedown of the Salafi, the Wahhabi doctrine. His points are very good. We do recommend you follow what he's saying. And it's become very personal and petty from the Madkhali camp, where recently this degenerate scumbag nationalist, who highly likely has sanction from MBS himself, was brought it down to complete racial insults. This vermin who looks like a Yahud was attacking him. Interestingly enough, a person who was actually platformed by Historiun, make of that as what you will, the same person who, in advance of him speaking, I personally made a message to say, look, we're gonna, if this is live, we're gonna be going for this guy, and it was made private. This same vermin, rodent, Zionist-looking scumbag has been attacking Muhammad Hijab, not on substance, not on anything, just personal. Recently, it was just personal attacks, and these Madkhali rodents have come behind full support of them. So these Madkhali rodents, these whores of the regime, these scumbags who are conspicuously silent on the issue of Palestine and the UAE's collusion in 2 genocides, well, 3 if you include Yemen, they are incapable of calling out the travesties of the UAE because they have affinity. They live in a parallel world. They live in Wahhabi land. Wahhabi land is like Hogwarts. It's a retarded form of Hogwarts, whereby the reality rules do not apply to them, whereby history shows you these regimes were established by the most nefarious of people, by the British. They backed them. They built them. They sent people to be tortured by them. Every single act of treachery you can imagine has been meted out by these regimes. But they seem to think this is not an issue. Even to the extent, even as far back as Muhammad ibn Saud, they considered the Turks as mushrik and the British as being more favorable because they're Ahl al-Kitab. It's still the same today. Still the same today, whereby they have preferred allegiance to the Americans and the Zionists over who they call the Majushis, or the mushrikeen of Iran. Now, we don't have a glazing opinion of Iran, and we have clearly, conspicuously, repeatedly called them out for their travesties in Syria. However, what is happening right now is the Zionists are the enemy, and the Zionists are an existential threat. And these donkey rodent madkhalis are the ones who are in the camp of the Americans. Moreover, the issue of allegiance has become muddied by them. There's even to the history seems to be repeating itself to the extent that not only have they glossed over the issue of allegiance, not only that, they've also thrown their lot in with ideological issues behind the same entities. So even to the extent that Ikhwan, so for example, the common soundbite right now, I was watching a video on trigonometry where they got another whore, but a secular whore, Ed Hussein, was exonerating the UAE and gave the talking points of the Ikhwan as being the issue. Same talking points. Ironically, their own king, Faisal, is the one who propped up Ikhwan. So if they are deviants, then what happens to your king who propped them up in the first place? Madkhalis, you are just a condom. Do you not understand? You're just a condom for the regime. When they're done with you, you will be thrown to the curb. When they have had enough of you, when you're no longer their favorite concubine, they'll move to Tuesday's concubine, secularism or atheism. You're nothing to them. All you madkhalis are nothing but a second-hand prophylactic. So bring your rubbish on. Bring your rubbish on. Fixate on us. Remember who we are. Attack us publicly, because we will be coming for you. We have publications that will destroy you. We get people commenting all the time, just expecting, I'll go over to to Saudi and say this. Are you an idiot? Are you in Hogwarts? Why would I go? Why would anyone go to a place where you can make a single tweet and go to prison? Why would you do that willingly? It's a police state. It's a state where people are sent to be tortured. They outsource torture, just like your lazy compatriots in your land can't even do a job, which is why they get 90% external, certainly with the UAE, get external people to do the dirty slave work. The same way the Americans did something in reverse, where they sent people to be tortured. Why would you go there? It's a police state. We have our profit. So this guy, for example, he was saying about, he was glazing Saudi Arabia and Tawheed. Our prophet's land, the land where our prophet was born, where he established the final message, is named after a degenerate family. It's named after a degenerate family who was raised by a sodomite, Malika Sabah, in Kuwait. That's what your entire state is named after, a degenerate family. This is your legacy. This is what you call Salaf, you donkeys. So we will not be quiet, and we encourage people to chime in and attack these madkhalis and use our channel as a reference point if you like. We've done 3 long-form videos destroying Faris, the Munafiq regime whore, on the issue of allying with Kufar, ruling by Kufr, and his rubbish on the Ikhwan. Because Ikhwan is the next one they're going for. They've already made Tahrir illegal. They've made Palestine Action illegal. Now they're going to come for Ikhwan. Ikhwan must be defended, because bit by bit they are making Britain into a police state at the behest of the Zionists and the UAE. The Zionists and the UAE are brethren. They are one. Just as we can call out Iran for their travesties, how can you not call out UAE for more travesties, more public travesties, repeated travesties? If you don't, you are living in Hogwarts and you are part of the problem. You are compromised. So I don't care how much dawah you do. I don't care how much dawah you do. You are compromised if you don't talk up about this, or if you talk up selectively. I remember, Allah Yarhamu, Ahmed Dida, unfortunately, he was used by the Madakhila because he's glossed over the American troops on Muslim land, and he mentioned about 5,000 American soldiers becoming Muslim in Hijaz. Does this offset the blood of Muslims? Does this offset when Madeleine Albright was asked about the death of 500,000 children under the age of 5? Does that 50,000, 5,000 American soldiers becoming Muslim offset the blood of 500,000 Iraqi children dying through sanctions? Is this the Hogwarts world you live in? Is this your parallel dimension, whereby just because you can profess I have Aqidah, magic, I have magic Aqidah, I can now do what I want? Whose sunnah is this? Do you need to get a chicken to sacrifice it, to throw it against the wall, maybe, like your cousins, your brothers, the Yahud? Because that's what you sound like. You think that because 1, 2, 3, 4 good acts you do, or because you profess to have the right Aqidah, it gives you a carte blanche to turn against Allah. Your own principles of allying with the kuffar against Muslims. Your own principles about Allah, ruling by what Allah has revealed. Like, for example, prohibition on riba. Is this the religion is this your pure Salafi understanding? Or is this just some neo-con understanding and an actual con? You will be exposed, just as your regimes will be exposed and shaken. And also this week we have timely a three-parter on the issue of Salafism. This is from our previous channel, but it's very timely. And we've also got one coming on, and this is correcting Thinking Muslim when they had the CIA agent. Also, let me just say very clearly, Thinking Muslim Jalal, you had a CIA agent on your show, or the CIA person. Abdullah Al-Aoud is with the group who have regular meetings with the CIA. It's a couple of years ago, but we have a video coming out which is addressing this from before. Our channel was taken down, so the best we can do is just regurgitate what we already have and new content. But remember this, that person was in cahoots with the CIA. We have the doc who has more material, more information, and we recommend you at least analyze it. Put your sectarian biases aside. Put your whatever predisposition you may have. Rectify yourself on this issue and speak the truth. Very good Thingy channel, Thingy Muslim, very good, but on this issue, so that video will be out soon as well, and that goes in detail about Al Saud and detail of the current situation. Now is the time to destroy these nefarious scum regimes. We're going through the Tafseer of Quran. The Quran has to be applied. You don't take part of it and you ignore the rest of it. This is the final message. This is our legacy to carry. No other messenger will come to carry this for us. We have to carry it, and when Isa alayhi salam returns, inshallah, he will be the one who will give us additional victory against the Dajjal. Up until that point, it's on us. Okay, anyways, enough of the rant. So the date is the 21st of June 2026. This is our 241st Tafsir session. We are on Surah Al-Ankabut, Ayah 65, which I'll recite, and the Professor. فإذا ركبوا في الفلك دعوا الله مخلصين له الدين فلما نجاهم إلى البر إذا هم يشركون. And so when they embark on a ship and find themselves in danger, they call unto God at that moment, sincere in their faith in him alone. But as soon as he has brought them safe ashore, they begin to ascribe to imaginary powers a share in his divinity. Next translation. Just a sec. When they board a ship, they pray to God, declaring their faith to him alone, but when he delivers them safely to shore, at once they associate others with him.
Yeah, I think that's clear, which is not necessarily when the Quran talks about Mushrikeen, since it's a general term, does not mean everyone of the last of them. There are various factions. So this means essentially that they believe that the God of heaven, or the supreme God, or the father of the gods, is the one who has the real power, who can save them in storm and so on from the sea. But when they come to land, the land is firm under their feet. Then there are other beings which have a share of divinity of one meaning or another, and they start and call for them for help, or invoke their orders as if they are having the right or legislation, etc. So that's not like Ibn Taymiyyah thought that this means that they believe in Rububiyyah and they don't believe in Uluhiyyah. This is nonsense. We have refuted that so many times, and they refer to the book of Tawheed to understand that more properly. So the categories of them who think that God, the God of heaven is also the Lord of the sea, but not completely of earth. He is of the Lord of heaven, and there are the angels there, but all in the heavens, there may be share of divinity in matter of divine essence. Angels are some, and the prophets somehow are the offsprings of God in some obscure spiritual or real sense, not in sense of adoption or election. And this is Sheikh, definitely, which is contradicting the Tawheed of Islam and the true Tawheed in itself. But at sea, somehow they recognize, this is the place where that guy, the top one, is the only one who can do anything. At land, we can negotiate other things. That's obviously showing that they are the reason of Quran mentioning that is that show they are contradictory. They are not consistent. They're living in a mythical magic world, not in the real world. Next ayah.
Next ayah. ليكفروا بما آتيناهم وليتمتعوا فسوف يعلمون. First translation. And thus they show utter ingratitude for all that we have vouchsafed them and go on thoughtlessly enjoying their worldly life. Next translation. So let them deny what we have given them and let them enjoy themselves. They will soon know.
Yeah, and it's very clear. So it's a threat for them. You may be enjoying life. You may be saved from the disaster at sea by divine grace, and you may continue having a reasonably good life. You think, oh, this is meaning that we are doing the things right. We have good relation with the creator of the universe and the other deities, and we don't need to bother very much. And also, we can't deny his other favors at land and everywhere. His unity and uniqueness, and then we get away. No, you will not get away. Soon you will know. In this world, or when you die before the day of resurrection, and after the resurrection for sure. So they are not going to get away with that. Next ayah. So basically, this address, or the previous ayah, this addressing the most simple-minded mushrikeen. Some ayahs of the Quran addresses even the most simple-minded, and some ayahs that this is the most sophistication, philosophical-oriented, because the revelation has to address everyone, using the human language and the necessary metaphor for every level of sophistication. Otherwise, it's not a revelation for everyone. It cannot be comprehended by everyone. Next.
أولم يروا أنا جعلنا هراما آمنا ويتخطف الناس من حولهم أفبالباطل يؤمنون وبنعمة الله يكفرون. Are they not then aware that we have set up a sanctuary secure for those who believe in us, in brackets, the while all around them men are being carried away by fear and despair? Will they then continue to believe in things false and vain, and thus denying God's blessings? Next translation. Do they not see that we have made Mecca a secure sanctuary, while all around them people are being taken away? How is it possible that they still believe in falsehood and deny the blessings of God?
Yeah, they know by tradition that this sanctuary had been established by Ibrahim based on strict monotheism, and this safety and the security they have there, because Mecca was always safe and secure through history, and anyone trying to attack it or make mischief there has been usually defeated and destroyed, almost in every case, remembered by history. And it's also deep inside Arabia, in the middle of Arabia, not in the far south, near to the Arabian Sea, not in the north, near to Syria and so on. So it has, beside the sanctuary, it has also a protective area and buffer zones around that, protecting them from the empires to enclose there. So then they don't see that. They know from tradition this is the response to the Ibrahim's supplication. So all these grace and bestowings from Allah alone. Nobody else responds to Ibrahim supplication. So why they believe in fallacies, like the claim which you have a drawing inside the Kaaba that Ibrahim was doing divination by arrows and other fallacies, while they accept the imported fallacy of God having the angels being divine sons and daughters, etc., etc. And they believe in that, ignoring this fact. This means they do not appreciate and accept Allah's favor on them in this specific place with this security. Let me mention examples of the protection of Mecca immediately, or the whole Arab Peninsula as a buffer for the middle area of the children of Qaidar, the son of Ismail. In ancient time, we know that Alexander the Macedonian, he's a pagan king, swept the whole world up to Afghanistan. Nobody was able to stand in front of it. And then he was preparing, he was thinking at last, obviously he was getting information about Arabia and its depth and so on. And he decided he will invade Arabia and take it. It was very an easy task. There's no central government there, sweeping it away. But Allah stepped in a Ghaibi way, behind the unseen. We don't know what the circumstances. Everything is ready. The army is that after even getting to Afghanistan, he was well established as the king of Persia, all of these things. Later, this kingdom has been divided by the four generals. But before that, he was the king of all this area. So he can rally enormous forces, enormous facilities. And he was planning for that. And he was celebrating the night before. The next day would start an attack and the penetration to take all Arabia. And what happens? He died that night. Some people say there's a dispute with his homosexual lover. We don't know. Some people say, no, he got a disease. I say, whatever the open physical reason we may see or they clean from history, if we can't ascertain anything specifically, the unseen is that the divine protection for our peninsula. Because if he remained alive, he would have really swept over Arabia. That's the physical condition, the power relations at that time. So Allah just broke his back and took him away. Whatever technicality of the universe had been used by the divine, blessed be his names. And then obviously the generals were busy then dividing the kingdom between themselves, and everyone said, with the hell with Arabia, who cares about this forsaken place? And escaped. Then later on, when Christians spread from the reasonably and good from especially the south and the north, and relatively first, especially the concentration in the valley of Najran, then the Jews who are established there in the south from the time of Solomon, okay, Queen of Sheba, not like the Old Testament claim it was in Syria. No, this is called, these areas called Sheba or Saba, because the tribes they descend from Saba, not because this is the area which mentioned in the Quran. The Queen of Saba is in South Arabia. And Judaism was spreading slowly, peacefully, no problems over the years. But when Christianity came to correct the blunders and the fabrications of Judaism and spread there, they have enough power to start oppressing the Christians and the believer in Najran. And then they asked for help from the Roman Empire, the Eastern one, and they were hesitating. They don't want to go to Arabia and get stuck there. So they pushed the Abyssinia and the Habasha to go there and do help, although they're different in school of thought, but grudgingly they did that. And then they occupied South Arabia. And in this occupation, there was some conflict between them and the Arabs, although they are Christian, and most likely they're maybe a monotheistic branch. We don't know whether Ariusian, whether Nestorian, whether really monotheist like the Nazarene who were in Syria and so on got extinct later. We don't know. Most likely they were monotheist. And that's the reason Quran called them the believer. Whatever it is, they are definitely in Allah's sight much better than the deformed Judaism, which the Jews and the king there, the oppressive king, was using. So ultimately, they succeeded, but they settled in and they built the major church in Sana'a. In Arabic, the word Qalis. If you check the word carefully, it seems to be related to Coliseum. Colis. What's the Coliseum? The ground, the great church, the super big church, the Colis. And one Arab pagan in the north, because he heard there's a Kaaba and Arabs are pilgrimage, they said, oh, this is a more worthy place of pilgrimage. And then he made a show and called the people to immigrate. One Arab pagan from Mecca or somewhere else was upset about that. He's pagan, but still he was upset about that. And he went to the police and alleged to the story. He sold it. The fakir there or something like that. Some nuts to it. Shouldn't have that. And Abraha, Abyssinian king, was upset and they told him the Arabs, they hear that you want to have the pilgrimage coming here and they want the pilgrims to come to their place, although they're pagan. So he was upset and dispatched a battle campaign toward the Kaaba. That's only in the Arabic tradition. There's no historical record of it. Always the Abyssinian, the Habasha, the Ethiopian will not record that, the defeat and the calamity. It's clear how history is written by kings. If they are victorious, they blow it up. And if they if lose, they erase it as much as possible from history. So you don't find it there. You will not find it in the Romans, nowhere, except stories about the people of the ditch and so on, Ahl Ukhdud. And near Mecca, then there was attacked by a divine miracle by the Tayr al-Ababi. That's recorded in Surah Al-Fil. There's no other historical record about that of any relevance except the Arabic and Islamic records. That's the reason these donkeys, calling them the hypercritical historical movement, no evidence for that. Show us some bones, so some gravels, things like that. Anyway, that's a protection of place because of the divine protection, because that's the place where the final message will come, and the final reserve for the revelation and the conclusion of revelation will happen there. That's one time of protection. And later on, then in Yemen, some Arabs there, Safim Diazan, possibly a Jew, I did not verify that historically, based on the defeat of the Jews and the dominance of the Ethiopian, the Abyssinian, he decided to call for help, so went to the Persian, because they were at that, they were always obviously in war or hostility with the Roman Empire. It inflames sometimes, it eases sometimes. That time it was most likely easing a bit, but still they are interested to have a foothold, so for them come help us and kick out the Abyssinian, because the Abyssinian incursion is most likely, that's the way I think. I was not there, but my thought, that's the way the Romans, through their Christian brothers in Abyssinian, are coming to Arabia, and they were to encircle you from the back. So you have to come and take base there. So he's a Persian agent, Arab, or liberator. He's not a liberator, he's a Persian agent. But anyway, Arab nationalists and the say, oh, he's a liberator. He's not a liberator, he's an agent. But Arab nationalists are blind about these facts. Anyway, they came and they kicked out Abyssinia, but they stopped at Salah. They did not dare go north because they're not interested. Yemen is at least fertile. You can have taxes, you can have administration. Middle Arabia is not very attractive, and there's no reason to go in the depth of the desert and get in trouble. And they know what has happened to the Abyssinia, so that's enough. So they were just taking Yemen, Hadramaut, Oman, current Emirates, Sahel Oman, the coast of Oman, and then the eastern region of Saudi Arabia. At the time it was called Bahrain. Not this miserable island, all that area called Bahrain, all the way to Kuwait, which is connected to the wind. So encircling, just blocking any attempt of the Romans to encircle there. So that's the divine protection. That area, nobody came close, ever, whatsoever, never. Nobody ever came close or invaded. So this is definitely something behind the scene, divine protection. Because everywhere in Arabia, in the outskirts, in the north parts, which were paganism became widely spread, like in Nabatea and north, even all the way to, what's the name of that place where the Babylonians have almost a second kingdom. Nabonidus was there. I remember the name of the city. It's north of the so-called Madain Salih there. The king of the last king, essentially, of Babylon, before the fall of the Roman Empire, himself, he appointed his son as a deputy, as a co-king, and went there allegedly for devotion to the moon god, and was religiously oriented. It seems to be another reason for that, but anyway, so up to that they were able to go, but no more deeper than that. That's the maximum. That's the maximum you can go. So that area is protected clearly for various complicated physical reasons and power balance reasons, but behind the scenes, the divine protection. So this is the safe place, the safe sanctuary. Do not they see that through history, thousands of years of history, which they have some basic records about it since the time of Ibrahim and before. Basic record details only for the recent few 5-6 centuries, but all the history accumulated is that area was never touched by any power, neither from the south, nor from the north, nor from outside Arabia. They should appreciate that. This is Allah's action, nobody's else, but they are not appreciating enough. Next ayah. So just a summary of some history. Interesting, just many people do not know that he was planning, and the next day, the army is ready to go to Arabia. He was killed or died, or nobody knows. Most likely killed. And then the generals disputed under them and divided the vast kingdom. The Ptolemies took Egypt, and then another one general took Syria and Anatolia. Another one took Persia. I think a fourth one took somewhere. Fourth one took the original country, Macedonia, the master country, and that's it. that stayed until the Roman Empire rose and took part of that, at least away, at least Macedonia and the one in Anatolia down to the Levant, and the Ptolemies later, Cleopatra and so on, and Brutus and Julius Caesar and all these stories. The other part became more Persian, and they adopted Persian culture, and they became the Persian Empire. So we have the old Persian Empire established by Koresh, allegedly, so established by Darius Nami, but he died without offspring. So the husband of his daughter, Koresh, the son-in-law, became the king, and they kept that tradition. That one was then defeated ultimately by Alexander the Macedonian, and then it was taken over by one of the generals, and he became completely Persian. That's the Persian Empire. And then this was later collapsed later. I don't remember the circumstances, and then a new empire of the Sassanids was established, which continues until the Persian Empire completely dissolved this beautiful history in the hand of Islam. But this is all just hints of history. We don't need to go into no details, but all of that going around, all of these fights, ferocious fights, nothing reached Mecca. Peaceful, tranquility, nothing, no problem. Even the tribe around Mecca was respectful of the Haram. They did not dare coming there or even touching it. Carry on. Next ayah.
ومن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا أو كذب بالحق لما جاءه أليس في جهنم مثوى للكافرين. And who could be more wicked than he who attributes his own lying inventions to God, or gives the lie to the truth when it comes unto him through revelation? Is not hell the proper abode for all who thus deny the truth? Next translation. Who is more unjust than one who invents lies about God or denies the truth when it has come to him? Is there not sufficient room in hell for the unbelievers?
This is a general statement, because usually the prime address to all the people in Mecca and around. So they must have been invented stories about the security, how Mecca is, and how these idols they imported from Sham. They gave them maybe more ancient history and so on to make them like genuinely original. They are not. They are imported around the time of Christ, roughly. Before that, it was simple and straight, basic monotheism. So they invented maybe the mutilated history somehow, including depicting Ibrahim as being doing divination by arrows and so on, meaning, oh, this is established by Ibrahim, the way we are on. So this is inventing lies and attributing that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And secondly, they based on that and based on their invention, and they're sticking to it to justify their misdeeds. They deny the truth when it comes to them through the messenger. The only messenger we know in history, they call that area is Muhammad. They rejected that. And the Quran says, don't worry about that. In the hellfire is enough place for those kinds of criminals. And these are most unjust and most wicked. Who can be more wicked than who lies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is the ultimate wickedness and the ultimate injustice. Next ayah.
Well, this is the last ayah of this surah. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. But as for those who strive hard in our cause, we shall most certainly guide them onto paths that lead unto us. For behold, God is indeed with the doers of good.
Next translation.
But those who strive for our cause, we will surely guide them in our ways. Indeed, God is with those who do good.
Yeah, and that's clear. So these are the worst wicked types, and there's various levels in between. But the other opposite, clear opposite, and between them there's so many ranks. But the other opposite, the one who struggle in our cause, in our ways, who struggle to enslave themselves to Allah. They struggle to do charity. They struggle because every one direction needs a struggle, need overcoming selfishness, overcoming desires, overcoming hubris. All of that needs struggle. That's real struggle. It's not as easy as people think. If you are lucky and you are now well established in that, meaning you have done the struggle before and you have forgotten it, but it needs struggle, which by various people differently, depending upon how lucky you are, what are the starting condition you are. But in any case, those who struggle, at least, even if they don't get to the level desired, as long as they struggle, Allah will promise that I will add more guidance from my side to my ways, various ways, how to be charitable, how to be kind, how to forsake brutality and cruelty. All of these are very different ways. All of them lead to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Within the big main, or let's say they are like lanes in the road to Allah. The road to Allah is monotheism, and all the lanes in between are sub lanes in which some people excel in someone, and some people focus on that one and say the other areas is not my specialty. I focus on that, and but within the strong bracket and the red lines of Tawheed, of strict monotheism, there's no divinity, nobody worthy of enslaving to except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, none whatsoever. Every other entity or in existence is a slave, is not a lord, is not a master. So based on that, the only one who can be obeyed intrinsically because of his necessity of existence is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everyone else cannot be obeyed except by permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is by necessity of reason, it's within limitation. It can't be ever unlimited because it will contradict the necessity of reason and the necessity of revelation and the necessity of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the intrinsically the absolute sovereign. So even if a divine commands comes, who seems to be like, obey me, obey the ruler, even they are committing haram, you must say, this is not a divine command, this is a fabrication. Because Allah cannot command anybody to say, obey me by disobeying me. That's not possible. So, for example, this is absolute. And there's a certain limitation. But inside that, obedience to anybody else must be sanctioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it has to be either by divine, because obedience is fundamentally, originally to the Lord and the duty of the slave. So you are not slave for anybody. All slaves are equal. So how come that you say basic ruling about obedience is permissibility? No, it can't be. That's excluded from basic ruling of obedience. So it must be enacted by Allah by an order of desirability or order of obligation. And in that case, to scrutinize that order, because usually in narrations, in books and references, the moment it smells that it has the smell of the crossing the red lines, then it is a fabrication. It cannot come from the divine. So yeah, for obeying anybody except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to have an evidence. You cannot say basic ruling permissibility because that applies to human activities, not to be enslaved to a lord, because obedience is the reaction of the slave to a lord. And then you have to have instruction. This is a relative lord, someone who can be obeyed, or you are allowed to obey it, or you are ordered to obey it, etc. in these ranks. For example, messenger, who obey the messenger, obey Allah. But the messenger is a created being. What is the meaning of that? Meaning, we understood that in the book of Tawheed, meaning that I am taking on myself that his commands are my commands. His orders are my orders. So I am protecting him from committing an error of communicating any wrong command. Not that his commands intrinsically are mine. No. I am protecting him. So his communication of command is if Allah commanding you directly. But he, for reason of the system of the universe, he using him as a conduit for the command. And then in that case, he has to guarantee that his command is the divine command. That's by infallibility in communicating the commands. That's all, in communicating. And possibly other infallibility and other things depending upon what revelation proves with certitude. We are proving in the case of Muhammad that his acts prove that he cannot do anything which is haram for his ummah. That's what we can prove by necessity of reason, being a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the Quran says clearly he is uswa hasana, absolutely, and without any other condition. Because of that, not because of the infallibility or being a prophet like some mutakallimin and philosophers say. No, that is not. You have to have a special evidence for that his acts. He cannot do anything haram for his ummah, and he cannot leave any unless you have an evidence that's speciality for him, and the Quran must stress, or the Sunnah, or the revelation, or the tablets must stress clearly with absolutely certain proof that he is exempt from this haram, or he cannot forsake an obligation unless there clear evidence and come that he is excluded. That's the specialty of the Prophet. Otherwise, and that's for Muhammad specifically, because he is a good example. And so on. Go to look at Tawheed, chapter 3 in the Arabic, and I don't know how they have divided it in the English translation, and which we expanded that. So all of these evidence there rely on absolute certainty, either Quranic text, multiply corroborating one, or Sunnah mutawatir, or mutawatir Sunnah, or necessity of reason. No possibility of mistake, or just beyond reasonable doubt. Must be beyond any possible doubt. Certitude without any possible doubt. Then we establish that because of that. So that's not Rasul Qadar. The same with obey the one in charge under you. It must be in the general red limits of necessity of reason. It cannot be for their own sake of it. But then in the Quran, it says clearly, if you dispute between yourself or between you and them, then refer to Allah, His Messenger. So it cannot be unlimited. Cannot be unlimited. Any narration or any fatwa who seem to indicate otherwise must be false, or a fabrication, or a blunder of a scholar at best. I don't think any scholar will blunder like this way. So if you feel in Tabarani is the hadith that they will be rulers, etc. The hadith, I have it somewhere, says, and they command you to do haram. And the hadith says, obey them, because in Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah says, why do you obey them? Because we have been ordered to obey the rulers. Say, yes, indeed, I have commanded to do that. That's clearly a fabrication. The one who fabricated that is an enemy of Allah and His messengers, with the necessity of reason, and with necessity of Quran, and necessity of Sunnah. With the Sunnah, you have a mutawatir hadith, multiply narrated and corroborated. لا طاعة لمخلوق مع معصية الغير. لا طاعة إنما الطاعة في المعروف. طاعة, obedience is only in ma'ruf, reasonable. And the reasonable things are defined, again, by Allah's Messenger, the ultimate calculation. And there's clear injunction in the story of Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, when he kindled fire and so on. He was making a joke, but anyway, say, من أمركم بمعصية فلا تطيعوه. It's obvious. It doesn't need to be stressed in the hadith, but Allah made it so that His Messenger comment on that in more simpler language, instead of the philosophical argument I just said. So that's very clear. That's the frame, absolute frame, which breaking it take you out to the fold of Islam, and before that out of the fold of reason, and destroy you completely. Inside that, there are many lanes. One guy say, I don't have money, but I am capable of thinking and have scholarship. So I will indulge in scholarship for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, and struggle to understand more in the scripture and write and so on. Great, that's a struggle. Money. I'm not great in charity or making money. Another one say, I'm not great either in this and this, but I'm good at prayer at night. I have a tough capability of standing at night. Okay, go ahead and struggle in this way, etc., etc. So many channels are really good. But within that big road, Sirat al-Mustaqim, many lanes. You can take one lane and say that I'll focus on that lane. As long as it says you are struggling for the sake of Allah. Then we will guide you to this, to complete this lane, or even other lanes which will open them, and you can, I can also participate in that. Let's participate in that. Let's participate in that. So, the next surah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
This is Surah Rum.
Surah.
Shall I read the first? Surah Rum. Shall I
mention the surah, its number, and so on, number of ayahs as in Hafs at least, which is not our chosen numbering, because we prefer the numbering of Qalun, but this is a secondary. So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it's sorry. Do you want me to read a few ayahs first, and then
the Surah Al-Rum, how many ayahs, etc., and the number of it in the order in the Quran.
Okay, so this is the Surah Al-Rum, the 30th surah, and it ends at 34, according to this numbering.
34 ayah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let's read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But do you want me to read the first few ayahs because it obviously starts with Alif Lam Mim and then
Yeah. Go ahead.
okay. So I'll read the first 2 or 3 ayahs
Until
here.
the end of the Roman affair. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure.
ألف لام ميم غلبت الروم.
ألف لام ميم غلبت الروم في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع سنين لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون بنصر الله ينصر من يشاء وهو العزيز الرحيم.
وعد
Shall I
الله.
stop there?
No, carry. Listen, we didn't finish the Roman affair.
Okay. وعد الله لا يخلف الله وعده ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون.
What's the next one? Just I think is the end here, but what's the next one?
يعلمون ظاهرا من الحياة الدنيا وهم عن الآخرة هم غافلون.
That's enough there. I think this is the Roman and the comment about that. So that most people do not know. They know only what they see directly and openly from this life, but then see the deeper sense of it. So they are completely unaware about Akhirah. But let's start. So let's get the translation.
Okay, so the first translation
is better for one translator for all of them and for second. Then I will comment, inshallah.
Okay, so the first one. So this is Alif Lam Mim. Scroll through for a sec.
The Romans have been defeated.
Yeah, just have to wait up. Defeated have been the Byzantine.
Actually, the Rome. They call themselves, by the way, there's a misconception. I think they at that time they were calling themselves Byzantine. No. And they were never called, even until Constantinople fell. They were calling themselves always the Roman and Roman Empire. The Byzantine is a later name given to them by some historian for some reason, meaning the Roman Empire, which was in Byzant. Byzant is kind of village near Constantinople, which later was called Istanbul and then transformed by popular tongue into Istanbul. So their name, official name, was Rome, was the Romans, because they regard them as the real empire. Even the western part, which was disputing actually, so essentially this appeared centuries before, a couple of centuries before Islam, and that's the Roman Empire at that time. So the Romans have been defeated. Yeah. Next
in the lands close by, yet it is they who, notwithstanding this, their defeat shall be victorious. Next translation. With next ayah's translation.
The same man all the way, and then the other one all the way. It's a bit clumsy, but
within a few years, for with God rests all power of decision, first and last, and on that day will the believers too have cause to rejoice. Next ayah. In God's succor, for he gives succor to whomever he wills, since he alone is almighty, a dispenser of grace.
Next. Still. Wa'ad Allah, the promise of Allah.
This is God's promise. Never does God fail to fulfill his promise, but most people know it not. Okay, going back to the first.
But they know not, they don't understand, they not. They know what they see, symbol, the appearance.
They know but the outer surface of this world's life, whereas of the ultimate things they are utterly unaware.
Okay.
So يعلمون
وهم على الآخرة. So the ultimate thing, the last things, then the non-open present things. So they may be extremely qualified in engineering, technology, science, knowing the whole cosmos up to the Big Bang. And what's behind that? What's the deep sense of that? Completely unaware.
So continuing. So now the translation from Kafka's.
Another one.
Yeah. So Alif Lam Mim. The Byzantines have been defeated.
He made the same mistake, but he should the Romans and then parentheses the Byzantine. Okay. But anyway.
In a nearby land, but after their defeat, they will be victorious.
In a few years.
Within a few years.
That's what you want. I could say both a few is in some years. But if you build is a sum. Now in Arabic, the build has a certain meaning, etc. We'll discuss that in detail.
Within a few years, to God belongs the decision from beginning to end. On that day of victory, the believers will rejoice. In God's victory, he gives victory to whomever he wills. He is the revered, the mercy giver. This is God's promise, and God never breaks his promise, but most people do not know. The next one is the final one from this dispatch. They only know the outward aspect of this worldly life, but they are unaware of the hereafter.
The jiva sense, which leads to the understanding the hereafter.
Yeah, so that brings us up to date.
That's what we so from the beginning, some word issues. As I said, I commented on the Byzantine. Alif Lam Mim we discussed in the Quran. What does it mean? It's still until now not settled. Maybe it has something with the numerical coincidence, the Quran. That's for future studies and so on. But anyway, I say the Romans have been defeated. And we can do in parentheses, the Romans at the time are the Byzantine for in the expression of historian, essentially. Not in their self-description, by the way. That's historian. That's the best what scholarship has achieved. They never call them the Byzantine. Later has been title has been given to them. So the Roman has been defeated. The Adna of they record that for Adna is translated. Let's see, well, the first one I would say, or the second, is mean the closest or the nearest of land. The word Adna could be the closest and could be the lowest. Both meaning are possible, and both meaning may be applying. This defeat is historically well known, established without a doubt. That's the defeat in the hand of the Persians. Because there was a conflict. I will comment later if we have time or another occasion how things developed in that direction, and things went so catastrophic later. But also that preparation was started before and after. So some say it means the defeat of the Roman army near the Dead Sea in the Wadi Araba. You know, the Dead Sea is one of the lowest points on earth, and the valley of Jordan is a bit higher and filling the Dead Sea, but there's not enough water to compensate for the evaporation, at least in the recent century. So the Dead Sea is going slowly down and down, and it's not flowing further through. And then there was a battle somehow in the around the Dead Sea, or at the end of the Dead Sea, in the area which is, I mentioned that area where Sodom and Gomorrah used to be, and there's the layers of black smoke and so on. That area is lowest on the earth, the lowest relative to what? To the surface of the sea. So in the coastal areas, usually the coastal area in the earth are higher than the sea level, almost everywhere. But there are some areas who are lower, like ancient lakes which have evaporated and so on. But that area in the Dead Sea apparently is currently and at that time the lowest on the area, which is the dry land which armies could meet and fight. So that's it. The sea is even lower. On the bottom of the sea is even lower. But we are not discussing the bottom of sea, discussing an earth where people can fight at that time and so on. The same with the Caspian Sea. Maybe the bottom is deeper than that, but we don't know. It's still now the top of it is in the level of the surrounding area, and this is higher than the. You can check with Google Earth what is the surrounding area, like the city of Qazwin and so on, which is a port city at the Caspian Sea. How high it is above the general universal sea level? I think it's higher, almost definitely higher. So, so this is Adna, meaning the lowest Adna. It could be the nearest. So if it is there, there's this battle, but there was a battle before that or after that near in Anatolia, in which the Roman army collapsed and they retreated and ran away to Constantinople and barricaded themselves behind the walls. And they were in a miserable state of affairs. I'll mention that in a little moment, this one piece. And this is closest to their capital city. So Adna close to the capital city. The other one in the Dead Sea is lowest, but also closest to the sanctuary of Beit al-Maqdis, Jerusalem, which is obviously an important reference point. So either obviously you have to scrutinize. They are separated only by a few months. You can we don't know what the Quran referring what the news the people, because the story is that the people that this news came and to the people of Mecca, and the defeat was so resounding and catastrophic, which hence stronger to the defeat in Anatolia or near Antakya there in Asia Minor, not this one, because that one the Roman army rushed towards its capital city, locked the doors, and were under miserable siege. So I'm more inclined to regard that the one which the Quran has referred, because the situation was so desperate, because the Persian army advanced and sieged from the Asian side, from the east, sieged that city, because the city is between the two continents there. And from the other side, they were under the siege by the, what's the name of this nation in Europe? Not the Romanian, and not the Hungarian, what's the name of that next to them?
Bulgarian?
The Bulgarian. They were the barbarian, and they were obviously pagans and so on. Very vicious. Very, I think they are Slavish. Anyway, Slavish, non-Slavish, Tatarian. I think the Hungarian are of the Tatari origin or something like that. They were sieging it, and there was communication between Shahr Baraz, the commander of the Persian army, and the Bulgarian to take the city and divide it with himself and make a big slaughter and take whatever, according to the habit of the war at that time. So it looks like, so the news came to Mecca that says the siege, they are finished, they're gone. The best they can be under siege for time, the empire is gone, forget about them. Now the real empire is the Persian one. It reached there. And we know the Persians did reach there, even they reached almost, they crossed over to Greece in the time of Shirawayh. In the Achaemenid Empire established by Koresh. They crossed there, but they were defeated and they were retreated. So they reached there in time past once. And such stories are a bit known to the Arabs. It's confusing, like semi-legendary history. So that looks like that they will be then there forever. There's no way they can recover. And they were jubilant. So, look, it is clear that the pagans, the Jews, are regarded as closer to the pagans because they have two deities, clear separated deity, the light and the darkness, etc. While the Christian having only one deity, there's a Trinity, yes, but it is still 1 in 3, 3 in 1. Is one divine being, not separate divine being. So is a monotheist. And Muhammad is praising the Christian, regarding them as believer, somehow general sense, and monotheist, etc. And this is just a bid'ah, small deviation, not fundamental. So imagine the pagans, the idolatry, defeating the so-called monotheists or semi-monotheists. That's a good omen that we, the idol worshipper, will defeat Muhammad and his people. So they were jubilant. They were happy. And there was the matter of discussion. So the biggest world news at that time. What a discussion in clubs, in bars. They have bars in Mecca. That was the issue of discussion. And one of the mushrikeen, and then these ayahs came, no, it will not, that's true now, but so this must be after the Ba'da'wah has been announced and there were confrontation with others. So it's not in the previous year, because that was da'wah, was not public in quote unquote. It was public, but was not confrontational. Was a prophet announcing that he's a prophet without asking the people, I am sent to you with certain commands. Was a prophet, but not a messenger yet. After he became a messenger and warned Anzir Ashiratak al-Aqrabin, his family, then warned everyone, then the confrontation started. So we could say it's roughly 4.5. So it's between 4 years after Revelation, 5 years after Revelation was 610. So we could see in the year 614. And this fits with the dates of that affair. And the Quran came down. Don't worry about the jubilation. The Roman will get the upper hand. At that time, the objective conditions looked impossible for the Roman to recover if he built a sinin. In some, the word bid'a in Arabic is between 3 and 9. Yeah, 3 and 9. It's not more than 10. They will recover and they will be victorious. But this looks from analysis, physical analysis of the reality and the balance of powers looks to be impossible. There's no way it's going to be happening. It may be happening 50 years later. Yeah, that can happen. Like in the case of Koresh and so on. Not Koresh himself, but Shearaway, Celsus in Roman naming, who was fighting all the way and then was defeated in that battle, which is, I think, I don't know the name, in which the man who came with the good news of the defeat of the Persian to Athena, running the so-called the 40 miles in one day, and then he gave the news and collapsed dead. What's the name of that?
Marathon.
That's the marathon. That's the marathon. But no, not Sparta. I think the Salam or maybe the Battle of Marathon. Anyway, and this marathon has been honored in the European Games, which are invented after that or well before that, and was introduced at the spot. Anyway. And then the Greek recovered centuries later, and the hand of Alexander Macedonian crossed over. It takes centuries. Okay, it may take 50 years, but not in better sleep, not in 3 to 9 years. So Abu Bakr was jubilant, and he did that to one of the mushrikeen who was bragging, now we'll get rid of Muhammad. He will be annihilated also. Don't worry about him. He's ultimately a nigger. So the objective condition, as per any human analysis, but actually in its reality also, I mentioned why it's in reality, is like that. There's no way you could ever estimate that in such a short time there will be a recovery. The biggest army was smashed and annihilated. Until you get a good army to the same level, you need at least a generation or two. There's no way. And this objectively the case, except when Allah steps in with something metaphysical behind the scene. It may appear physical later, but it's metaphysical. So Abu Bakr went and make a rihan, a gambling with one of the mushrikeen, and told him, I received that and it will be true. So they made a gamble on 10 camels for 3 years. And then he came and mentioned the gambling was not prohibited at the time. And he was a challenge. And that's the essential nature of gambling. Went to him, Allah said, I did that. Believing firmly that's what happened. Inshallah said, but why do you specify 3 years? What is the meaning of bada in your language? So it's between 3 and 9. So why did you say 3? Go and increase until 9. It will be between 3 and 9. We don't know. Go and increase, and obviously the other side will not accept increase except to increase the bid. So 10 camel, ultimately it ended with 100 camel. Up to 9 years. That's safer. Now, my claim that it is according to human judgment is not possible to cannot be envisaged by the power of relation is also the reality. Because when Allah said that, He said, Allah's promise, Allah will not fail His promise. It's a divine promise. If things have been left by themselves, they were developed really in that direction. But Allah decided to reveal that and made the decision, I will make it this way. If necessary, if I break history, it will be done. It's possible, obviously, as we say, the future possibilities are known, but sometimes you need to step in with something miraculous or something behind the scene, which you may look at and say, oh, we know why it's happened. But before that, it was not feasible and not guess. So this is the miraculous aspect of it. That is a divine promise, which then when Allah promised something and broadcasts to the creation, it is obligatory on Him to fulfill it. And there's no way. Even the whole universe cannot be undone. The promise must be fulfilled. So Abu Bakr went back and increased that. The story is then the news of the counter victory of the Romans, which balances that out and showed that they are not annihilated and finished, came, I think, in the 9th or 8th year. So if we say the year 14 or 15 plus 9 or 8 will be 22, 23. That's after Hijrah, and possibly some narration claim it was the day of Badr. Maybe this is exaggeration, but in that time, roughly. But to make the day of Badr be a strong reason is that he says, in that day the believer will rejoice because of the victory of Allah. Most likely, it could be the victory of Allah means the victory Allah given to the Romans against the Persians. That's a victory of Allah. But some scholars say, no, the victory of Allah meant here is the victory in the day of Badr. the victory day of Badr, they rejoiced on that. And at the same time, they received that fantastic news. And then Abu Bakr contacted the man, and then they settled the bet somehow. So that's important to see that the ayah says it is wa'd Allah, which confirmed that the judgment of the people, that the Romans will never recover in such a short time, at least. They may recover, as I said, in 30 years, 40 years. It's well, always possible. But all indication was Constantinople under siege, not only by the Persians, but also on the other side by the Bulgars. There is no hope. Soon they will even take the city. So they will never recover forever. They will disappear from history, become another empire. Or if they hold on, they may hold for 30, 40, 50 years until there is an army, sufficiently big army in this city under siege. It was very difficult to imagine that you can raise such an army, but the city at the time was quite big, and maybe they will be busy producing children, and then you can train them. But maybe 30 years, you have a standing army which can do the job. Or these armies sieging it will get bored after 1-2 years, and they will retreat, and then the Roman Empire will be able from the surrounding area recruit soldiers and so on slowly. But it won't be 3 to 9 years. It's out of question. Impossible. It will be much more anyway. Until you have to have, because the initial army was essentially annihilated. So you have to wait for a generation to get an army of, most like the army was in the level of 200,000, something. You can't get that so easily in a couple of years. It takes 30, 40 years. So Allah did it in some other way. And the other way is that Heracle, the cunning, was able to reach to Shahrabaraz and instigate him to move against the king of Persia and gained him as a friend. So he became a traitor and went back trying to claim the kingdom. And then the defeat started of the Persians, step by step. So from completely unexpected place whatsoever. So that's one. That's something which cannot be expected in advance and may have not happened if Allah let events go their way unless he stepped in from behind the scene. Just enlightened Heraclius to use his intelligence, mischievous intelligence, in the right direction at the time, and it ends this way. He did not need to wait for the Persian themselves and the king of the Persia and his supreme commander. He was able to move them against, because of some old grudges between families. The king is from the Bahlawi, the real Bahlawi, not the current Bahlawi, and the commander was from the family of Bahram, who usurped the kingdom and was killed by Pervez himself in time past, many years back. So he somehow came to know that and sneaked through that by trickery and so on, and succeeded in that. Through palace intrigue, it's very complicated. We don't know the details, but it must be of this type, because there's no other physical or reasonable way to do it within 9 years. Allah did it. But just by inspiring the man, showing him dreams. We don't know how it did, but so it looks at first, Heracle is the genius. Sometimes you are genius, you get blinded. Sometimes you are dumb, but you get a good idea, a spark of idea which change history. That's usually by a divine incursion in history. But anyway, so that's what. So now my comment on that, we'll go more to the eye in detail, is that, and even the Persian were able to get the so-called, to take the big cross. Big cross is an alleged the cross where Isa was crucified, which is not true. It's a cross which they were, Helena, the mother of Constantine, when he embraced Christianity, she embraced ahead of him. She's most likely the one who motivated him to become Christian or to pretend to be Christian. And he, being intelligent and sharp, that's several centuries before, around 300, something like 310. And he was sufficiently sharp to recognize this is a very powerful way to unify the kingdom, to split in three, between 3 or 4 kings. Now he unified them under his leadership, and he needs, like most tyrants, he needs a religion or an ideology to get people together. And Christianity was widespread. They were a minority, a prostitute minority for centuries, but they could be a unifying force, because the others were pagan, and everyone has his own deity and his own direction. But this is at least, if it's a minority, but still people. And if he if he issue a decree in his area that prostitution over forever, and that he is regarding Christianity as the religion because he won a certain battle, and some rumors were spread that he saw a cross in heaven. Most likely those are all myths. We don't know. And then based on that, almost certainly it's a myth. Even Christian scholars got this. There's no root for this story, but it was powerful enough to defeat the others. Get rid of that. First one was defeated, then he was embarked. And that's Constantine. His mother then, happy with this here, went to Palestine to check all the history and the places. She is the one who established this monastery in current Sinai. I say current Sinai deliberately because this current Sinai is not the real Sinai mentioned in the Old Testament. The real Sinai is near Midian in Arabia, across the sea, not there. But the Jewish scholar, the Christian scholar were there. The geographic knowledge is relatively deficient. And possibly the Jews deliberately misled her. I don't know if they're deliberately, but it seems to be from the Old Testament that the geographic knowledge and direction is miserable anyway. But they may have misled her to that place.
Assalamu alaikum. Just a quick question, Sheikh, while you're in that ayah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi to yourself and all tulab. The question related generally, sometimes when there is a defeat or a victory of one kufr over another, generally those who have been influenced by Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, they would be like saying, oh, how can you rejoice against mushrikeen? This is not allowed. Doesn't this ayah also shows that just because Allah Azza wa Jal says that Muslims would rejoice, it does not necessarily mean that believers were celebrating one shirk over another. This just means that Muslims, the choice is not binary. It's always Muslims look for their own benefits. When even kuffar fight amongst themselves, we have a third choice. We can rejoice the defeat of one kufr, including even supporting, paying one, supplying one.
Which
Yes.
result in support of Islam. Yeah,
Yes, because some people see it in their mind as if a binary choice. It's not binary. Muslims can have their own mawqif and position and make the choices based on what is beneficial for us. So it doesn't mean that Muslims are supporting one shirk over another, because this ayah is just evidence that we could have our own position and rejoice and support and supply one over another, because the ultimate aim is ours, benefit for ourselves.
The dangerous one, the more dangerous for Islam, has been defeated. So we are rejoicing this, for example, that it's benefit for Islam. And there may be any consideration, not only binary, tertiary, but you don't be amazed that the Wahhabi have that, because they have a one-dimensional mind anyway. You know, they're very shallow, and we know what their type is. They read the Quran and do not digest it. So if you don't digest the Quran, you end with such conclusions. That's necessary.
Yes, okay. That's true. One other question I had, Sheikh, from yourself related to the last ayah that Akhi Rashid recited, which was the أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وعد الله لا يخلف الله وعده ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون يعلمون ظاهرا من الحياة الدنيا. Sheikh, some people argue, I mean, their position is strong, and you might agree with them, that whenever Allah Jalla wa Az, when He talks about ilm in the Quran and Sunnah, it is generally the knowledge of religion, because this ayah Allah Jalla wa Az says that وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. He says they don't know.
Yeah, I know, but the premise is false. That's only religion. Any knowledge, any real knowledge, knowing things as they are, is a knowledge. They know about dunya, excellent knowledge, technology, Big Bang, and so on. But that does not mean necessarily that they know about akhir. But behind this apparent knowledge, what is the root of the existence? What the meaning? Does the existence have a root or no? Does it have a purpose or doesn't have? These are deeper sense which is related to akhirah, to eternity. So this is that technology is a knowledge, and the respect for knowledge, yes. وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ صَنْعَةَ لَبُوسٍ لَكُمْ. San'a is a knowledge, and Allah teach people this knowledge. Knowledge of an individual case of that someone is terrorizing his parents and deserve to be taken out of the way, and the replacement can be held. It is given to a Khidr, specific knowledge, and he acted upon it outside the law, because that time there was no law in that area. So he was acting on the divine instruction, which Moses rejected. How can you do someone this? Or evidently there was no court discussion, no proof of guilt or anything like what's going on there. And they said, didn't I tell you you'll not have patience with me? And then Musa stepped back. And then he explained later, this one was terrorizing his parents. And then from all the conditions, maybe as I once explained, I don't know if I explained it in Surah Al-Kahf at that time, he most likely is a member of a street gang or something like that. I just trying to get a historical example of now. And he's a menace. So Allah decided, and the parents are good people, but soft and weak. So we take this criminal out, and Allah treats him the way he wants. So we don't care about him. Worry about that, they will get a good replacement. And most scholars said the good replacement is a good, kind daughter, which can take care of them. They don't need that miserable street gang leader or street gang member, but it's obviously not the way the law usually works. That's what shocked Musa. So all of this is knowledge. So the premises is wrong. Knowledge is general in Quran and Sunnah. No, absolutely not. So they start with the false premises and then on sand and build mountains on sand. They will collapse. So no need to bring this ayah or answer all these things. No. The premises is fundamentally wrong. But let's continue with the, okay. Thank you for the answer. That's very good. So that's it. In the case that now they received it after Badr and they were rejoicing, the Quran is just promising it will be at the same time. But maybe they were rejoiced because of this victory, because of the victory given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He promised. So to lift the spirit of the believer, it's very well possible at the time they have another victory which we rejoice about, maybe. So both meanings are possible. They will be jubilant about the victory given to them by Allah. Is this victory meant? Is victory given by Allah because He promised that, and He interjected with the normal history. If the history would run their course, the Roman Empire had disappeared. Now someone say, why should Allah step in history and save the Roman Empire so it can this promise will be fulfilled and the believer will have the satisfaction that that Allah is still more in the side of the Christian rather than the Majus. It has other deep reasons also. One of it is the Roman Empire stays and will balance, because if it left this way, then the Persian Empire will gain enormous strength. And when Islam is in the future will confront them, they confront a strong, stable, powerful empire. While if the Roman balancing it until the time of confrontation, they will both weaken. They will weaken each other. They will continue weakening and messing up each other. And this inspiration or this dream or this spark in the mind of Heraclius to use the old conflict between the families of the Pahlavi and the Bahram families for its spiritual king, and the supreme commander is a Bahrami, and the king is a Pahlavi. That will work in the future also to destroy Persia. All of that is known to Allah Ta'ala, and He stepped in history and gave the promise. Otherwise, the Jewish king can rejoice, the believer could them rejoice as much you like. Allah will give us victory in His own way. We don't need the Roman. But getting the Romans smashed this way, the Persian smashed first and then Persian retreating later, made the two eating in each other, weakening each other, destroying each other until they both are finished and weakened. Okay, so many complicated things. History is so complicated. But that's important to see this is the wa'ad. Because of the wa'ad, Allah fulfilled it. It's the wa'ad. It's not, if someone say he knew that in advance, no, there's no new in that. If knew in advance that if it left naturally, it will never happen. But Allah made it happen. The future can be changed. Obviously, Allah in absolute terms. In humans, in a limited term, not you make your own future, you make your, that's the future jabr completely. So there's a hint out of the jabr there, but it needs some deep thought and analysis. So this is a genuine miracle. Now somebody say, the only objection to it say, a miracle promising about the future or giving a news about the future cannot be trusted upon until we have the report about the prophecy itself ahead of the, and established and well established ahead of the event itself. Otherwise, it's not a prophecy. It's maybe backdated and the people wrote it back in the history or in the books and so on. Yes, that's usually what people narrate more orally. But for the people living at the time of the Prophet, it was fulfilling all prophecy conditions, number one. Secondly, because it's in the text of the Quran, enshrined text of the Quran, it is inconceivable that it was fabricated later and put it back in the Quran by Muhammad, because we know the Quran comes from Muhammad. There's no escape. This is by parchment, by analysis, no doubt about it. Nobody can get away from that. Would it be conceivable that Muhammad will fabricate that after the victory and invent the whole story and put it in the Quran without being scandalized and exposed as an imposter? That's impossible. So it is really there. It was there ahead of the event, and the event came surprising and shocking to everyone. So it's really a genuine future promise, prophecy about the future, and valid evidence of prophethood. And by enshrining in the text of the Quran in such a way that it makes it impossible for it to be fabricated later and put in the Quran by anybody else, because Muhammad, and by Muhammad himself, is impossible without exposing him as a liar and imposter. That's very clear. That is impossible anyway. So it is definitely pronounced well before the events, well before, something like 9 years before the event, and it materializes as promised. So it is evidence that this man, Muhammad, is receiving that from behind the universe, from a supernatural force, which either knows or controls the future. Not to say only knows, it may make the future. There's absolute control over the future in any case, either knowing it, which is dictated by some necessity of time past, or creating it. And this is only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he must be receiving that from this source. Okay, that's the meaning of the evidence of prophethood. And it's in the text of the Quran, does not put us in the spot to prove that it has been before the fulfillment. Like, for example, let me fix on the light here, because the sun is coming out. This become blurred or something like that. Now I think it's better. It's more evenly lighted. And like, for example, the fire of Hijaz, which has been specified to be in a valley called Tafseer. That's also a genuine prophecy. Impossible to invent. Why? Because the narration about that and that Habsail and so on is scattered in the books, including Bukhari and others, but in all books of Hadith and in multiple copies. You find copies in Andalusia and all the way to Timbuktu now of the major books, and in Morocco, in Middle Arabia, all the way to India. And they were distributed and widely spread well before the event. And also some traveler and geographer went there trying to find the valley of Habsail and described that, Yaqut al-Hamawi, well before the event. And this is all by Tawatur in written documents. So it's absolute that it was there before the event. There's no doubt. Attributed to the Messenger of Allah, but attributed to someone, most likely the Messenger of Allah, maybe someone else. It doesn't matter. But it's a genuine prophecy, because a couple of centuries later, after Yaqut al-Hamawi or something like that, we have the volcano of Habsail, of Harrat Rahat, who has been recorded by history, has been recorded by European, and almost certainly has traces in the North Pole and South Pole, was showing the gases and the ashes of that volcano at exactly the same date. So that's a genuine prophecy. Nobody can attack it. So you have to make established that the prophecy came before the event with certitude. In the case of the prophecy in the Quran like that, we have the certitude that it could not be possibly fabricated later and put by Muhammad. That's impossible. Otherwise, he would have been exposed. Or after Muhammad, because it's impossible to do anything in the Quran after Muhammad, as justified by parchment and by fragments and so on, and other evidences. So it's impossible. It must have been uttered well before the event. So it's a genuine prophecy. That it's a type of promise or type of knowledge, it doesn't matter. This is an issue of philosophical issue of qadar and qada. But either one of them can be only coming from the supernatural, supreme being who has absolute control and knowledge of the future, and nobody else. Okay, do you see the point? Keep that in mind. So that's the one, the one which makes this prophecy shocking, both for the people present at that time, because they see it by themselves, and for the generation after that. So the claim that the Prophet did not have, like some people claim, oh no, other material, only the Quran. The Quran itself has also other material and important proofs, which are in some sense related to history and events of the future. That's usually not regarded as even stronger than material miracles, because material miracles are really can be only binding and persuasive, or regarded by certitude only for the people present. After that, the problem, people relies on narration, and narration can be always attacked. Yes, narration by tawatur is unattackable. Just agree with that. But the problem, all previous prophets and even miracles from Muhammad in his life, like increasing food, etc., narrated usually not by tawatur. Each event is noted not by tawatur. But these we add as secondary evidences after establishing a prophethood with others, so supportive evidences. But for Isa, there's no tawatur. Chain is broken. For the Old Testament, even worse. Completely broken. Could be completely mythical or legendary. Nobody knows what has happened. You can rely on trusting faith that they kept records properly. That's all. But you cannot really have a genuine proof or that it has happened with certitude. You can't. But prophecies about the future, if you can establish that they were written down and available before the event, they are an absolute proof. The problem is that to establish that they are available for the proof, usually you have to have it written down and a secured way and nothing tampered with. And this applies to one or two prophecies of the Old Testament. One of them is the chapter 9 of Daniel, the prophecy of the coming of the Messiah, because it specifies a date, a starting point, an end point, and so on. And this is in Daniel definitely recorded and fixed, luckily in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and also in the translation, the Old Greek translation of Septuagint. The translation can be attacked because the translation of the Septuagint is allegedly started at the time of one of the Ptolemies, I think Ptolemies II, and it is not certain the story. So most like the story told about that is legendary. That 70, that's called Sab'iniyas, the Septuagint, 70. That's the translation of the 70. Allegedly 70 Jewish scholars were invited by the king to sit and translate their books, and they translated that what we have. But it's well established historically they did that, but most likely only for the five first books. For the other books, we are not certain if that translated at the same time or bit by bit later until the end of the 1st century. So then Daniel may escape there. Although it's quite difficult because the dates to synchronize dates almost impossible there in the prophecy itself. But we have a copy in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is dated definitely to 150, 160 BC or even older. And that's no way to escape from that. It was locked away for 2 millennia. There's no escape from it. And we have it in our hand, and we have the dating, and we have the physical evidence, and we have that it was sealed for all this time. There's no way anyone could have wrote it after that. Besides, the structure of prophecy itself is so complex that after this event, so many years will go, and then the Messiah will appear. And if you are calculated, after you synchronize all data, all dates, with the various calendars of the time password, very difficult, but the job has been done independent from this issue from about 2 centuries, and it's completed early this last century or mid last century. On the result, when the Messiah comes, actually, the most important point is that when he will be cut off, taken away from the people, doesn't say crucified or killed, taken away from people, cut off. It turns out that you can put the cutoff day exactly on Wednesday before the day of the crucifixion, but it was in the year 27 Anno Domini. Not 30, not 33. It's correct that also. But also 27 can be had from other information if you do it correctly. So the usual date of 30 or 33 both are wrong. That's correct, plus 27. But it mentioned the beginning of the da'wah. It is 7 years before, the year 20, etc. It doesn't mention many other things except these. Yeah, surprising, but it's definitely a prophecy. Newton, by the way, fleshed that a bit, but he could not get it correctly because synchronizing the data at his time was not done yet. We don't have the cuneiform tablets of the Ashurian and Babylonian, which have the dates connected with lunar and solar eclipses. That's what made the synchronization absolute. And then we have the dates mentioned by was it Gallienus or someone of the ancient, which was using essentially the Egyptian calendar, which is the mathematical one. You can work with it, but the problem is difficult to synchronize with the other one. He made some synchronization, but most scholars were doubting it until the cuneiform. So if you put all three, but it took about 2 centuries to do that job of research and archaeology and so on. Ultimately, it ended with well-established synchronized tables, resulting in that what we have now. And if we apply the prophecy from the starting date, that the day the order to rebuild Jerusalem, not rebuild Jerusalem, meaning rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, as mentioned in some ancient books also. So if you put that all together, you get to the Messiah, Isa, Jesus, the son of Maryam. Salawatullahi wa salam alayhi wa ala walidatihi. Nobody else. That's the Messiah announced by Daniel. So all Jewish expectation of a king Messiah, all of it is nonsense. And that's the reason the Jews did not take that onto board, because this Messiah will be cut off. He will not be a king. They want a king Messiah like David. Wait for eternities. You will get only the Dajjal. That's all what you'll get. There is no more king. And this Jesus announced, if you see all what's stated, essentially his main job is to announce the kingdom of God. Kingdom of God, meaning sovereignty of the law, no kings, no hereditary monarchy, finish. But the people did not understand. And this will be established by the Parakletos, which will come later and explain everything about Isa. Everything fits nicely with the final message. But this needs some work. I started working on that, then I got this issue with the vision, and I needed to check all ancient calendars, double check them again. I got them now, everything is ready, but now we have some Shabab working with me. Inshallah, we'll work on that and get the prophecy of Daniel. The prophecy of Daniel is cure for atheism. I would regard as cure because it indicates that atheism is a fallacy, but it's also cure for the ideas of the Jews about Messianism, and confirming and strengthening the ideas about basic ideas of a Christian about Isa, but being the Messiah, but not the Messiah. They also pray that when it comes to the world to be sacrificed, this is all nonsense, their own imagination. There's nothing there in. Actually, they said clearly in the middle of his time, in the last week of years, 7 years, in the last week of years, in the middle, he will abolish sacrifice. He will abolish the sacrifice. He will abolish sacrifice. Not become himself a sacrifice. He will abolish sacrifice. In the middle. He did some act, which means the old system of the Jews that you are putting pigeons, or maybe the act he did in the temple when he kicked the tables and so on, where the people need to exchange money so they can buy pigeons and sheep for sacrifice, and that's the only way to repent from your sins, sacrifice. He abolished that. You just repent to Allah sincerely, wash yourself, baptism, then you don't need to sacrifice anything. So sacrifice as a necessity for salvation has been abolished. Not that he came to a sacrifice to save humanity from the original nonsensical original sin. So it contains massive important hints, and some of them are clear. but it needs to be read in context. Anyway, I indulge too much in things which may be secondary concerning, but it's very important to read prophecies. You must establish a prophecy about the future. Disregarding is it a divine promise or a knowledge of what will happen? It can't be only from the one who have knowledge of the future or complete control of the future. Either way, that's a technicality which go in matter of freedom, choice, divine freedom, free knowledge. That's not our issue. Our issue, either one of them is only accessible to necessarily existing divine, number one. But for that to be used as an argument which cannot be refuted, we must have the prophecy before the event which a prophecy claims. If it is after, it's easy to claim people wrote it and referred it back in history. It has to be before. Before, with certitude, means it must be written down and the writing being copied correctly over generation or locked away like the Dead Sea Scrolls, luckily for Daniel and so on, and some other prophecies. Then it is an absolute, no way to escape it. And this is the reason I was thinking about this, the Messiah prophecy of Daniel, to give it a subtitle in parentheses, cure for atheism. This cures from atheism. There's no escape from it. Atheism cannot be, it's impossible for, especially this complex way, it's just impossible to be known before. Absolutely impossible. There are many other prophecies in Daniel about the rising of the other kingdoms and so on, the so-called hypocritical school and atheists say, oh, this is all written after the fact and then attributed to an imaginary man called Daniel. They can't say that because the document which we have in hand certainly is the one 150 before Christ, maybe more if there's now doing a new dating with carbon and so on, and this dating pushed the dates because they have the old dates based on the style of writing and so on, and based on many other considerations, they made it 150 BC, but cannot be later. They cannot, but not older. Now some of the documents, especially the book of Isaiah, which is actually Asha'yahu, the book of Asha'yahu, they cleaned it because in the process of reading and so on, and some material was used, they were able to clean it. So we have the original parchment, and they turned out to be there two measurements. One bring it to 200 plus minus 30 years BC, and one to 300. I am more inclined to the 300. I think it's 300 years old before. But Isaiah himself is in the year 700 back. So that we have also broken isnad. Anyway, everyone can fabricate in between as much as they like. But if there's a prophecy about the future, there's a prophecy about Koresh. There will be a king of Koresh, etc. Most likely it's fabricated after the fact. From the context, it's clear it's fabricated. So that's not a prophecy. But the prophecy about the sons of Qaidar and traveling in the valley, making pilgrimage, this is something else. That may be something else. You see my point? So obviously this is not related to the ayah directly, but we have to comment about the ayah being an evidence of prophecy. Yes, it's an evidence. And this is enough to prove that at least these ayahs and that the Quran by implication is from divine origin. And so don't need for evidence of prophecy. All other things are built then step by step, one by one, about the Quran, its revelation, all these things. But this is enough. But also this will be a cure for atheism also. But we have a cure, an elder cure in Daniel also, which may be more for the taste of the people in the West if it is completed, the work completed. I have it in a folder. I have sub part of it published about Darius the Mede and so on, and the Babylonian and so on, and what really Koresh did and what really Darius the Mede did. All of these things, and comment on various things based on the book of Daniel. So it's very interesting. But this one, hold that with the iron fist. Listen, there's no way to get away from that. Don't be let them divert your attention. You don't need to worry about the Big Bang. You don't need to worry about someone coming. So there are infinitely many universes. We are living in a lucky one. There's no fine tuning because all possible tunings are there. All of this is nonsense. It's rationally nonsense, but I don't need to be bothered about that. You're speculating about something which is not accessible to any experimentation. So it's not scientific. It's just philosophical speculation. But I have something accessible to scrutiny now in my hand. I have it. So you indulge in your multiverse as much as you like, speculate as much as you like, it's just nonsense. That's the evidence, is nonsense. If that's multiverse is used to prove that there is no deity, it is not a proof. It can't be. It is just imaginary construction. It's actually an internally contradictory construction. The other one I finally recently, someone discussing, and then he started, when the Big Bang, when the universe created itself at the Big Bang, the universe creating itself at the Big Bang, nothing can be more absurd than something creating itself. Means the reason can disappear, can go. Because to create oneself, himself, he must be there to create himself. But he's not created yet. So he's there and not there at the same time, the same constellation, and every point of view from every reference frame of watching is impossible. If someone can get that in his brain, then his brain is damaged beyond repair. It's completely irrational. He's living in a magic, mythical world. And that's what they end. The same with the multiverse. It's just an answer of a magic and an attempt to escape. We don't need to assume any divine. No, it's a multiverse. I address that in the book Tawheed, but in the second edition, inshallah, and we are reviewing that, I will add a bit of more, giving a second cover for that section, because plenty of videos now are existing general public. So these issues are more common in the genre, not everyone, but a good portion or level of general public, like people who have a high school, who have university graduate, and people working in engineering and so on. They may be fooled by that. They think there's some kind of a rational of scientific. It's not a scientific discourse, because this is not scientific. Science is that what you can either observe, you can repeat an experiment, or you can observe in a controlled way, like observing the stars and so on. You can't experiment with the star, but you can observe and repeat observation in a controlled way. Experiment, you can repeat the experiment. When I say metals length increases with heating, which we know had a good explanation why we have to have gaps in the tracks of the trains. Earlier, the people did not do that, and they have the tracks twisted and trains derailing, and then you could detect the problem, made experimentation, and got to the Hooke's law by experimentation. It's a fact, yes, because we can verify, we can experiment with it. And the same with issues of the cosmos and observing the various kind of supernova and so on, and finding out the distance of the universe. Massive and repeated observation, controlled observation. Yes, that's science. Anything beyond that is speculation. Neither is experimentally accessible, nor it is philosophically attainable. So it's nonsense. Anyone can blubber in nonsense, including the blubbering when the universe created itself in the Big Bang. The universe created itself in the Big Bang. And a sentence which is utterly internally contradictory and necessary. And many people say that. You see videos. Then from there, he thinks he has science. Okay, from there you have science. But this point itself, you are just in utter irrationality and absurdity. Your starting point is absurd. Why? Because then you say there's some kind of a super being who is the creator, and he himself is not created. He's eternal, and he's the beginning of everything, and he's the purpose of everything, and he's the ultimate destination of everything. He's the first and the last, the alpha and omega, as it said. He wants to run away from that. Why? This is the psychological problem. But there's no way to run from the question in a rational discourse. You have to do better than that. And there's no way to do better. But all of this is a bit deep and complicated. No problem. We have something here. Everyone, even half retard, can understand it. A baboon, like Shamsi the baboon. Can understand it. It is, here's the text, here's the story, here's the history. And here we have this. It's impossible that has been written after the fact. So it's before the fact, and from someone who knows or controls the future with absolute power. Here we know because Wa'ad Allah, it is the one who controls it, and he promised to do it. Even if it's condition left alone would not have ended there, he will step in and change them to do that. Not only for that purpose, maybe many other, maybe billions of purposes, infinite many purposes. Complex. The future is extremely complex, exceedingly complex. So we can see clearly first fulfilling the promise and having a miracle for his messenger, inshallah, in the Quran. It's very important. And secondly, also having the two empires destroying each other until the day they confront Islam, and then both are weak insufficiently. Now I know somebody will say, the victory of Islam against these is not an evidence for anything. No, nothing at all. It's not an evidence because they destroyed each other decades before, so they were already wobbly, so that the Muslims succeed in destroying one completely and sieging the other one for centuries until it collapsed internally or collapsed from outside, just like in Constantinople. There is nothing miraculous there. Yeah, but how it came to that situation? It could have been otherwise. And this is the text of the Quran. That's the important. Well before any consideration of history and historical analysis and strategic balances and etc. Okay, should we continue? Is it enough for today? What's the time now?
I think we can stop here. What was it? Just a quick one, yeah?
Now, the comment which the brother rejected quickly, luckily, said about the last two ayahs, is that Allah will not fail to fulfill his promise, but most people do not know. They don't have the real depth of the knowledge and the reality. But they may know plenty about this dunya. This applies in time past and now, and even in the future for any disbeliever who denies that God exists and he has the complete control of the future or the knowledge of the future. But he may know plenty of the dunya. So don't be fooled by his knowledge of dunya and his sophistication in rocket technology and space technology and AI and so on. That's only a zahir, front side of existence. What is the back side of existence? Does it have a root or is it rootless? Can it be rootless? Is this root and being acting by free will and sovereignty, which is must be, because any other possibility is not possible to create contradiction. And if it is so, it must be a being of comprehensive knowledge in a certain structured way. Sure, try to detect what is it. And he possibly have a purpose for this creation, possibly not. Maybe just for expressing his creative activity and enjoy creation. What's the purpose? Does he has a purpose? Okay, we have to. If we cannot ascertain a purpose by necessity of reason, which is very difficult, but we can guess, then we have to, if he speaks to us and give us information, then we can get the purpose. So can we expect a hope for revelation? Let's check history, the revelation. That's the way to go. That's not fire. That's the bottom, the back of knowledge. But the front, that's a knowledge. And there's a knowledge, like some donkey Wahhabi and so on. The ilm in the Quran is only about Quran and Sunnah, about revelation. No. The Quran self-refutes that. Even teaching how to make shields for the battlefield. They achieved the simple technology. For us, it's simple. At that time, it was a complex technology, because what usually narrated is that he taught how to make it so with pieces so they fit together, so it's flexible enough with zarad. Allegedly, maybe he made it the one solid one. Solid one is not very much of technology there, but it needs the technology of iron and so on, etc., to protect people. But this is really clumsy. The best of it is really like zarad. Allegedly, David taught by Allah. This is ilm. This needs knowledge. Was not known before. For example, that's ilm. علمناه. We gave him this ilm. The same with the ilm about the street gang leader who was terrorizing his parents. That's also another type of knowledge. for a passersby, it's impossible to show a boy playing in the street with some grown up. It must be grown up. Some people think it was a small child, and in the future he'll be talent. No. It can't be. And that's the reason some people invoke that in Qadar, they are wrong. But independent of that, that's the discussion again, Qadar and Qadar. That's a knowledge which can be given only by the divine. And the action based on that, by divine permission, is a special order for this man. Now, so this is not an order given to Musa. Musa's order to make a court of law, scrutinize, get witnesses, and so on. Yes, but this man is not in the people of Musa, and Musa is not sent to him, nor he is sent to Musa. So he has his own law. And we learn from that Allah can enact other laws. When some of them private for certain people who will remain hidden identity. That's the reason they showed this story at Al-Khidr, the name they gave him the name Al-Khidr. I don't know where the name came anyway. They claim like everything happening somewhere else, they say maybe Al-Khidr passed there. Al-Khidr is gone long ago. He must have died long ago. Some people say, oh, he's alive until Yawm Al-Qiyamah. No, it's not. But anyway, that's another issue. Just for fun, I'm mentioning that. Fantasy of the people run away with that. People love to have stories and fun. As long as that don't touch the Tawheed itself fundamentally, okay, have these stories, enjoy them. But don't think this is really revelation or well established. Also hinted by the revelation. The revelation hints to many things. Some of them are true, some are not, because it's coming to people who use their reason, their mind to think, not to baboons like Shamsi the baboon, according to Rash. The title given to Shamsi by Rash, not me. Anyway,
it might not mean a particularly bright baboon. I'm saying a baboon that came lowest in his class in baboon class. He didn't even make the grade.
So leave Shamsi aside, just have questions and answers.
I don't want to be done for slander saying that he's an exceptional baboon. I mean, a very base level baboon. Okay. Quick one. Okay, so somebody had a question related to Qadr, so it's related to this. So I know you've probably covered it quite a few times before, but I'll read it out. I mean, if the brother wants to unmute, raise your hand. So I once heard an Ash'ari explain the destiny foreknowledge stuff by saying that Allah is beyond time, past, present, and future. All are to Allah one moment. What's a good way to respond to this? All I can think of is the hadith.
It's just speculative statement. Does it make any sense? And beside, the issue of zaman and time has been addressed, but is better than his address, at least to start with, is the address well established by the hadith of Rasulullah. First of all, discussed hadith. It's only from Abu Hurairah, so it is only the probability of evidence is only one channel. So it is not qat'i. We cannot say it's qat'i. It's number one. Secondly, the content of it, as we will see in a moment, is shocking and surprising. And we know such a statement, such an idea was never in the minds of the people of the book or previous philosophers. So it's rather inconceivable that it came in the mind of Abu Hurairah without being interjected by people of the book, like many other hadith. I mentioned the examples of the hadith, which we know that Abu Hurairah may have confused in his mind that they come from Messenger of Allah. Like, for example, were it not for Eve, Hawa, because I never used the name Hawa for the wife of Adam at all, except in this hadith. You find if you had Hawa, Eve in any hadith, it must be fabricated. So anyway, in this hadith, were it not for Eve, the only one Hawa, no female will betray her husband. Yeah. So he says, the Messenger of Allah said, or I smelt, or even I hear the Messenger of Allah saying that. In that case, we can judge this definitely from the Messenger of Allah for reasons of the matter itself is impossible. When did Eve betray her husband? Does it mean betrayal in the sense of cheating? There's, as far as we know, they were the only man and woman and maybe isolated from a tribe of subhuman or pre-human, but doesn't matter. They were. So there was no other man to cheat with. So what does it mean? Most likely the Jews and Christians, the one who have that their common partners, they say Eve betrayed Adam by moving him to listen to the devil. That's what in the Old Testament. Agree? Agreed? Yeah. That's that's the only way to answer. What's betrayal is there? Read the story in the Old Testament, read the stories mentioned about Adam. Nothing shows that Eve has done a betrayal, except cheating with another man that's not there, or cheating, betraying him by letting him down and introduce the devil to him, and so on, as like the Old Testament claim. But this is impossible. The one in the Old Testament is a fabrication. Quran is very clear that the devil made waswasa to Adam and so on, and the waswasa was to Adam directly. And how actually, if we say Adam betrayed his wife or let her down, is not correct. Yes, she would have, if she would have done her duty completely, she would have slapped his stupid backhead and said, stop it, don't listen to the devil. But still, he's the leader. He's supposed to be the man. He's supposed to be the one leading. So he's the one who failed. So he cannot, this kind of betrayal from her. If it's betrayal, if he betrayed anybody there, he betrayed her. Yeah, she failed to do that duty, but who will, in that early stage of humanity, will have the courage? Which woman will tell her husband, who's supposed to be the head of the family and the leader, stop, this is a mistake? She has to agree. Maybe grudgingly, maybe not grudgingly. The Quran does not mention that. But clearly, she is not involved in that. So what's that? Where is the other man of cheating? Where is any story that she committed adultery or so? No. So we conclude from that, this cannot be from the Messenger of Allah, from whom the same the Quran has come. That's out of question. That can't happen. So conclude from that this must be from Ka'b al-Ahbar, from Jews or some Christian, and Abu Hurairah is known to sit with them and discuss with them and take from them. And if you are not very sharp in your memory in the matter of attributing statements to their sayer and events to the participant there, and that's called isnad, strength in isnad. Not in a memorizing the story itself. He may be excellent in memorizing a story, but attributing it to the person doing it is another skill of the memory. Check these memory issues. There's some channels who discuss memories or memory experiments and so on. There are various skills in memory. We can't conclude that must be taken and interfered in his mind. Unless you want to go to extreme, say he fabricated the liberty and he's a munafiq kafir, that's something else. But I don't think all evidences stands clearly against that. So it is a confusion in the other hadith I mentioned now about the meaning of dahar and zaman, which is stunning in the meaning and so on, is quite shocking and not like anything from the previous generation before Islam. Neither Jews, no Christian, no philosopher. What did it say? It starts very innocent. So it's a hadith Qudsi. يقول الله يؤذيني ابن Adam. The son of Adam is hurting me, is abusing me. يقول يا خيبة الدهر. What a miserable time. What a failure of the time. يسب الدهر. In another wording, يسب الدهر. He insulted الدهر. الزمن. And this is a habit of, even until now. Oh, my day, miserable day. You know, all of us sometimes have some words coming after a month like that, isn't it? Now, the stunning point comes, it's completely shocking. What Allah says, وَأَنَا الدَّهْرِ. I am the dahr, the time. Now, what does mean I am a dahr? The explanation comes, أُقَلِّبُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ بِأَمْرِي. I turn day and night by my command. So it defines what is dahr. Dahr is our expression, how we perceive the order of events. That's exactly what Kant came to. It's from the order of events. We call it passage of time. By my command. The time does not pass by itself. I am the one who makes the pass. I am make the events one after one after one. It's an expression of my absolute freedom and sovereignty. So I started with the first order and all the way after that, which we then ordered one after one after one. But it's significant to say أنا الدهر, and they explain what's أنا الدهر so you don't get confused. So the claim Allah is not outside the time and so on, it's just statement which is empty of meaning. What's meaning outside the time? What meaning outside? He is the time, according to the hadith, with the explanation that he have absolute freedom. And he managed the universe in order. أقلب الليل والنهار بأمري. They are not turn around, not by anything fundamental, even if it goes to the beginning for the first command. بأمري. Now we have to go a little bit deeper interpretation. The starting point of the universe is by the divine command in complete freedom, with certain structure which makes the future open, as we see, and also the Quran indicates in other places. So that's the way to talk about Dahr. Not that Allah is not in time, outside time, above time, that past, present, and future are one point for him. That's manifestly nonsensical.
Also, you're supporting evidences around with the.
And then obviously the other evidences and so on. The problem came from the following thing, that they were confused and adopting the reason of two things. First of all, they regarded the only evidence for the existence of Allah is dividing time and so on, and then they ended in such a way that anything which has events in itself must be itself, because anything in the universe we see it has events in itself, it has changes. Regard everything which changes cannot be necessarily existing or eternal, which is wrong. Because what has changed, which contradicts it, is what makes you contingent. That's change, the change in essence, not a change in time of order of them. So from that one, because they thought the only way to prove the existence of Allah is this one, they regarded he must be from one. But if knowledge changes in the sense that when the Quran says clearly, no leaf of a tree falls until he knows that it has fallen. So he knew about this. So they got stuck with that. And they made this one, and they made misunderstanding. He has knowledge of everything, all things. And they ignored the meaning of shay, something which can happen, which it has a possibility of being. The impossible is not knowable. The same, وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. And that's the reason usually the question is Allah capable of destroying himself, capable of creating a stone which is so evil that he cannot lift it. All these contradictions because they don't understand the meaning of qudra. It relates only to contingency, not to necessity.
That's even
that,
point.
this cannot become shay. If you add that, plus the hadith, plus the ayah about the future, knowing of the future, then things are clear in your mind. You don't need all these expressions which has completely, the sound having meaning, but obviously they're internally having no meaning. Meaning Allah is outside. For him, past, present, and future are one point. Besides, also contradicts the statement of the Quran clearly everywhere. So, what meaning? Work, Allah will see your work. But so he sees that you are not working and already, then the statement is wrong. Cannot describe this. So Allah is outside the Mashiach point. It's just a statement which is sounds intriguing and interesting, but doesn't make any sense. In itself, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Also, a quick one. You know, in Surah Kahf, it says, لِنَعْلَمَ أَيُّ الْحِزْبَيْنِ يَحْذَى لِمَا لَبِثُوا أَمَدًا. Does that say نَعْلَمُ? Is that Allah reference so that he may know?
Yeah. It is they will have a confusion, and they will see which people who will get it right. It's not known at the time. So some will get it right, some will get it wrong. No doubt about that. This was what they are there. But are they decided at that moment? No. Because it depends upon the people education, about their will, but their choices and so on, which is not created yet. They are not there.
So one of these, for example, I remember a brother when it's mentioned, he said this Ibn Taymiyyah's point about divine perfection, having perfection in knowledge. So that's probably where this a lot of this is being referenced to. No,
Ibn Taymiyyah is innocent of that. Is he hints but doesn't dare saying it because it's so entrenched. But he attacks this Ash'ari point of view and the Mutakallim point of view that the only evidence for the divine is that the claim that what never devoid of events, whatever they call it event. What is devoid of event, what is never devoid of events must be itself an event, must be created. No, the conclusion is wrong. This is one idea. Like, for example, has made a mistake about the Qudra and say this is a blatant kufr. I'd say it's either he has the power to do it as it should be, or he has no power to do it. No, he has a power, but this power does not relate to the impossible. It's a wrong definition of power. That's it. And this based on that. So the problem, they started with the studying the time, and studying the time is extremely difficult. And going to the beginning of time is very difficult. For us, we go in a limit. And they started with eternity. You cannot start with eternity because it's not within human comprehension to start with this. And they gave one example of the Zeno paradox, when he said an arrow from one gets certain distance in 1 second or in 1 minute from point A to point B. So if we halve it, it will go in half minute, and so on, and so on. Say, and if we sum half plus plus eighth plus quarter plus eighth plus so on, which is the geometric series. These are infinite many terms, and then he does make the following conclusion: and infinite many terms must be summed to infinity. That's the mistake. No, it's not true. An infinite series does not necessarily sum to infinity. And to prove that's quite easy. You just write this quadratic series in one order to broken to a certain point. So you have to work with finite first, and then write it in the other order, or multiply, write it again, multiplied with S. That's the top sum is S, and the other one is the Q times S, and then add the 2 or subtract the 2, and then everything falls except the term n plus 1, and then you have in front of you how to sum it. And it depends upon the Q, the factor, which is in our case of the Zeno paradox is half. If it's raised to n, with n going over all borders, going to 0, then you can sum. And you have the sum 1 over 1 minus this Q. If it is explodes, then you have it cannot be summable. But you have to do it. But how to do it? You have start with a finite, which is well under your control as a human limited mind, but it's a genuinely correct mind. And if it's exactly 1, like 1, if we have 1, then 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, it will go to 1. And then 1 divided by 1 minus 1 will be divided by 0. Is not defined as possibly infinite. We don't know. So if the Q, the geometric series parameter, is less than 1 in absolute values, then the series can be summed easily without any problem. Otherwise, not. So Zeno's assumption, because it's infinite many terms, they must sum to infinity. No. You don't start with infinite many things. Start with a finite, cautiously, and see if you can do something, adding, subtracting in such a way that you can go to infinity, then step by step in a cautious, controlled way, like what I did, which is done. That's taught, I think, even in middle school now, how to sum a geometric series, or maybe in high school. Relatively simple and straightforward trick.
Okay, let's go. I call it a day for the main part of the halakha. Let's go into Q&A now.
Anything else? Any other question? So
no, we'll do question answer. For the
what do you mean? He's not in time. He's outside time. What is time then? Tell me what is time. Is it a being or it's something i'tibari, some reference to something else? The hadith tell you clearly what's reference to what? To the divine activity. So does it make sense to say Allah is outside his activity or inside his activity? Doesn't it? Is activity. And you have to go from there. That's the best what we have.
Okay, let's call it. So Tafseer is over now. The reason I asked this question was because it's related to what was being asked. And, okay, so let's start the Q&A properly now. So next week will be on Surah Rum We'll start from Surah from the 8th ayah.
Okay.
Okay. So Q&A. Then after that, we'll stop the stream and do the Palestine update. So the first question, somebody's been spamming us quite a bit. He thinks we're Shia, which is funny because I've never been Shia. You've never been Shia. Never. The only Shia I really knew in my life was what I consider to be a complete mental case anyway. So, but yeah. So he says. So he's been spamming, and he thinks that I'm not going to ask you this question, and somehow I'm hiding stuff from you. Why has Iran abandoned Gaza despite 20,000 being killed, etc., etc.? Why is so? First question: why has Iran abandoned Gaza?
Does it mean now after the agreement or abandoned before?
The agreement after the agreement.
It doesn't seem you cannot say the word abandoned. What you can say is that there was an opportunity in 2024. In the first, what they call it, promise and first or the second one, to continue. But obviously at the time, they were completely not trusting their own ability, and they were sucked and messed up on their mind and their direction. I mean, especially the Pahlawi with the wrong name. That's the Rida Pahlawi and his son Muhammad Pahlawi and his grandson Rida Muhammad Pahlawi. The original name is similar to Pahlawi, but it's not Pahlawi. It means the donkey, what they call it, the one you put in the back of the donkey so you can sit on it. What's the name of that? Saddle. The donkey saddle in Arabic is called burda. It was a baradri. And this regard in Iran, but also everywhere in the world generally, unfortunately, as a low level, as a man of the lower class. So people said, when he was pursued, he wanted to be a president actually, but some scholars, I don't know what motivated them, because they don't want to have election and so on, so that they think they may have thought that in danger the philosophy of the hidden imam, whatever it is. They said no, you become a king. So he accepted that. Some people say this is, how can a king have this last name? And it sounds close to it's a Belawi or something like that. Let's make it Pahlawi. So it sounded like the Pahlawi family was ruling, the last one ruling in the Sassanid Empire before it has disappeared in the hand of Muslims. So Pahlawi, so it's not really Pahlawi, it's from ordinary lower people, lower in quote unquote, according to people's misconception about handwork and because the one who make donkey saddles and horse saddles and other utensils is necessary for human life, like the one who farms, the one who produces, is needed. That's needed. So this is nonsense. But anyway, that's what human unfortunately fall in easily. Transferring people, the lower people, higher people. So this is the Pahlawi wing. They never cared really about Islamic commitment, and also they thought, even if the one who have some Islamic inclination, some are pretending, or some are tradition, some are Baha'i, some are genuinely kafir but hiding it up. But anyway, they thought if we support Bashar, this will revert all danger, and from Iran to Syria, people will be fighting there. And the same with Iraq. Fight will be outside our border. Obviously,
proxies, the idea of proxies.
Yeah, it will be the battlefield will be there. We don't want to be attacked in our country like happened to Saddam. That was a deadly experience. We barely escaped. Whatever it is, that this concept in their mind and the lack of real trust in their own people and their real trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, generally, not some of them have that trust. Is that what, when the opportunity came in 2024, 2025, 25, they were terrified. All what needed to terrify everyone, especially Iran, is to send Roosevelt at the time by Biden, and then what's his name, Wilson, or the Secretary of Defense, what's his name, the black one? Wilson, Dixon, at that time, all of them kept saying, we don't want the war to expand. Don't. You remember these, don't. And everyone peed in his pants. Agents were happy because they were never planning or thinking about Palestine. They was the cover up. And for them, that's very great. What can you do? America came with aircraft carrier. Actually, Hezbollah did not buy the bluff completely, but Iran put pressure on him. We don't want a war to Biden, etc. So they missed the opportunity. Now, when it came, they were forced. The current victory is by force. They didn't choose it. When they advanced and so they are able to attack the American bases. They have a plan for the American base for the time past, but it was like an emergency plan in the far future. A dream. If it happens, we'll do it this way. It succeeded, and America could not defend. They got encouraged and got more courage. Until now, they don't get the full courage as should be. Otherwise, they could have smashed America and Israel in this occasion. So the moment America caved in and asked for ceasefire, there was two camps inside Iran. The cowards, they're still afraid. They cannot really overcome their shadows. And possibly they are thinking also on benefit and reducing the loss of Iran. So they accept and say, we can't get more with negotiation. Obviously, Revolutionary Guard and Mujtaba are not in that camp. So it looks like, and then they specified why this was Hezbollah, because Hezbollah is having bay'ah to Iran in time past. It's clear. It's clearly, and have same madhab. There's no excuse to abandon them. While the others, you could say, and you could also say Gaza, actually Gaza started this problem. It was not arranged with us. We did not synchronize the timing. So they got us in trouble. So we're not obliged to do anything. You can't find an argument like that. It's a fishy argument that you can't find. So we don't mention Gaza directly. We say ending the war in all fronts, and especially or including Lebanon. Does not mean it's not ending in Gaza. The moment this issue of Lebanon is settled by other Israeli withdrawing, or the war erupts again, which will happen when we come to discuss in the Palestine update. So this guy can wait and listen to it, because it will not be covered in here in the record, but now only in Zoom. They could not avoid mentioning Hezbollah. So Hezbollah was hammered in time past. It turns out their position at the time, 2024 and 25, was 2024, which led to the Pager affair and showed clearly that they made a mistake and they made a blunder. So they promised Hezbollah this will not happen again. So they have to mention Hezbollah explicitly. Gaza, they can avoid mentioning. They don't mention Yemen explicitly, but it's also included in that treaty. It's clearly included. But so this is not abandonment, but lack of the courage to mention it explicitly. Should have the explicitly in all fronts, including South Lebanon, South Lebanon also. They should have special South Lebanon specifically, but they're not. It's including Lebanon, just keeping it vague, and including Gaza. They should have that. Yemen, they don't need to include because Yemen is essentially victorious. They kicked the American butt anyway, so you can mention this as one. And Yemen was not involved in the current war to any great extent. Nobody dared touching Yemen. They left alone. So no need. There was no war started there, but it can't start anyway at time there. So in that sense, you could say abandon verbally. Because in time past, let's face it, let's be honest, they just peed in their pants. They did not call the American bluff because of lack of Iman and lack of clarity of the mind, because they were fooled and dragged by Bashar into the swamp. And we have mentioned since the time of between 11 and 15 and in the old broadcast, we repeated again and again that Bashar is an oligarchic agent, and he's in collusion with Israel behind the scene, and he's dragging them. And it seems to be in mid-time they recognize that, but they were so stuck that they don't know how to go out. And Russia came also as a Trojan horse of the Zionists, at least at that time. Maybe now they recognize that Putin himself, that's Putin, not Russia. Russians are not Zionistic, but Putin and the oligarchy in Russia. The oligarchy, the financial oligarchy, is mostly Chabad, Lubavitch, Mystic. It's very complex to Russia. But Putin himself was really a Trojan horse for some time. Did he liberate himself? We don't know. We don't know. But anyway, they seem to have recognized that. And that's the reason that their relation with Russia is a little bit clouded. But wisely, they support Russia against Ukraine, gave the drones, so they put Russia in the corner. Russia had to reciprocate with some reasonable reciprocation. And they are doing it. They can't escape from that. There are licenses, there are exchange of benefits, and so on. So at least they have pacified Russia in that sense. But they did not know how to bail out of Bashar without admitting they committed an error. And it's extremely difficult, especially for governments, to admit that they committed an error. They should have done that long ago. Already 2020, there was a good suspicion that the the Republican palace that Bashar and the people around him are responsible for assassination of Qasem Soleimani. And they're behind that. Almost certainly. And it's almost with great probability that Iran recognize that, but they don't know how to get out. As usual, they are very slow and cautious and so on. And then 7 October came, and they're stuck that they don't know what to do. So this failure to recognize that and withdraw, and the failure to recognize the American bluff, and the terrification, the lack of real iman. You need real iman there to call the American bluff, and to have the courage and trust in Allah fully. So that's it. So forsaken, no. But chickened out, being in the pants, yes. So answering this guy this way. They don't abandon. And before that, they were supporting. They are responsible for considerable supply of support and weapons to Gaza in the time it was possible, like time of Morsi. Much of it came from Iran and from Turkey. I think they were cooperating with that, and Morsi were allowing to go. A little bit of trickle was coming in the passing time of Mubarak. Then this pig Sisi, the Khasisi, came and then blocked all the tunnels completely and flooded them even with water. So that's roughly, if you look behind the scene. So abandoned, no. The one who abandoned are the Arab leaders. Clearly they abandoned with the Fahad and Abdullah peace treaty. They just to keep faith, they put this condition that Palestinian state in the border of 1967 according to international law, and they would make peace with Israel and so on.
And part of the reason October
that's in front of other people. In the background, they were doing like the Emirates. The Emirates was like the Emirates.
I mean, that's why October the 7th happened, because they knew when.
It seems now we have information and documentation showing that what's his name, Sinwar recognized that you cannot let it go like that. Otherwise, Gaza will be sold out completely. So he moved, and his move is of historical value. The people said that he endangered the Palestinians, caused them to get murdered. No, he changed it exactly like the move of Abdullah Osama bin Laden with September 11, which is most probably he's behind that. That's historic. And he was very aware that America will lose its mind and come in the Muslim world. But he was convinced, that's the difference between Iman point of view, he was convinced that when they come to the Muslim world, they will do enormous mischief and bloodshed. But they ultimately, their back will be broken and they will go out. Because he was convinced that the Afghani struggle in the 80s and early 90s is that what injured the Soviet Union and broke their back, which is true. It contributed considerably, obviously, and broke the back of Soviet Union. So he thought and believed and worked toward to get, there's no other way with this power of Americans to get them in the Islamic swamp, like Afghanistan, now the wider area of the Muslim world, and then slaughter them there. It will be a slow process, very painful, but he's willing to do it. And he did it, and they succeeded. They got in the swamp, they got their butt kicked in Afghanistan. Soon they will be eliminated in Iraq, where it's not, again, the mistake of the Iranian regime and accepting and legitimizing the occupation in Iraq by accepting the government there with all kinds of filthy excuses. And the same with Syria. They would have been slaughtered long ago. Long ago. So you cannot talk about abandonment, except by Arab countries. Most Arab countries, they have really abandoned Palestine, and they got all kinds of excuses and called them hedged behind them. Ultimately, they were almost about to abandon it and join the so-called Abraham Accord. So there was a necessity to strike a strike which would make them waver and lose orientation. That's what had happened.
Okay. I've got a bit of a long question.
But for that to recognize, you have to starting with the 60s and the 50s and develop it one by one. Not listen to what these Arabic journalists and so on, these stupid idiots or traitors and sellouts.
Okay, so this is a question about law in Pakistan. So I'll read the whole thing out. So Pakistan has enacted a law about child marriage. The law has set the age of marriage at 18 years old and deemed to penalize anyone who facilitates the marriage of a girl or a boy under the set age. They will be fined 100,000 rupees, probably 10 quid, plus up to 1 year imprisonment. The law includes punishment for everyone, including parents, guardian, the marriage contractor who ratified the certificate, the qadi, molawi, and other parties, if applied, to be fined up to 1 million rupees and imprisonment up to 5 to 7 years. As per the government, these steps are being taken due to child marriage issues, abuses that are rampant with underage marriages that affect socially, financially, mentally, and physically in our society, what it leads to. Question is, so there's going to be a couple of questions related to this. Question is, does the Muslim government have the right to legislate or not in this matter, or will this be against what Allah has revealed? Second part to this, what if the court or judge read the statutory law of someone getting married under the year 18 years, their nikah null and void, and interpreted it as far as zina, fornication?
No, that's horrible. That's definitely, we can't answer that. That's not.
Okay.
But
can I just finish the last question? Similar law has been enacted on the matter of polygamy, men marrying more than one wife. The law says that the men have to go to the government specified union arbitrary matter committee to see into the matter about if the first marriage is being handled properly with justice, and the man will also need permission of his current spouse to marry multiple wives. Again, the law says it is incumbent upon the arbitrator committee to give its judgment along with the wife consent in this matter. Anyone failing to do so will be fined 500,000 rupees and up to 1 year imprisonment.
This one's clearly second go, because if he has just and so on previous marriage, how do you know he was just between wives if he has only one wife before? So this seems to be circle. There's some circle over. Yes, if he has previous wives and was unjust, etc., that's something else. But this can be easy handled by enacting the Hanafi madhab in a proper way, that the wife have must give consent, that it can't be forced, and if the father forced, the father will be punished, and the marriage will be declared null and void. But after that, so it can more exactly, it can be dissolved if she wish for that. But in any case, even a forced marriage, children are legitimate, etc. But anyway, that will be the punishment for the father. For the first one, the age of 18 is spurious. There is no reason to believe that 18 is really the age of proper consent. Even in the West now, we're getting it to 16. And all evidence is that, like for example, Jewish law, that 12, which women start menstruating. But you might say it's too young to make a decision. So her decision does not show the expression of will. You may fix an age, and anything below that should not be allowed except with a court permission advance. That's number one. If someone finds violating that, then he is punishable. But the punishment with these numbers of days and so on, the question is that deterrent or not? That's a lengthy, complicated question. So first of all, to prevent that, the principle should be that full consent of a consent-capable girl. The minimum, she should be a woman. She's a woman. But we could conclude from the ayah of giving the money to the orphans when they come out of age, with the consent, to check if they are sufficiently capable of making good decisions. Marriage is also an important issue as giving the money to them, so we could say they have to be checked. The law may specify an age which we can assume generally that they are capable. I think 18 is too much. In Turkey, for example, a secular country is 14. Which makes sense for women. For men, maybe 60 or something like that. But that's the purpose to protect women, because they're usually abused in the tribal and Indo-infested community. Not the men. The women are not forced. They propose and so on. So you fix an age, which no need to scrutinize. Anything below that must be applied to the court to get permission and scrutinize the case if she is capable, and the judge has to check up. And anyone violating that can be punished, etc. But if it happens, the marriage cannot be declared to be, the wife or whatever, the judge can declare it null and void from that day, but before that it was a valid marriage and there's no zina. That declaring it's a zina because of that is wrong. So it needs to be treated and done more properly than that. But all for the unfortunate, did they consult the ulama there? Most likely they consulted and they found nothing really persuasive or respectworthy, unfortunately. So, but it's possible for things like that, especially when you have situation where societies are tribal or something like that, or you start with a situation like the Pakistani coming from a Hindu culture and things like that.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. On this matter, Sheikh, just to بما أنزل الله ومن لم يحكم بما أنزل الله. For example, if a doctor says that alcohol is bad and we say why, and he says because it's not healthy, and we say, well, Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran it's bad, and he says he doesn't care what Allah Azza wa Jal says because of science, and he says if you do that, he would still be kafir because he has legislated on something other than what Allah has said. Regardless, just because his hukum aligns with the hukum of Allah Azza wa Jal is irrelevant. Now, coming back to the government of Pakistan, leaving the ikhtilafi issue that we have, like what the age is and what the age of consent, they have most likely made that decision based on the religion of Iblis and not on Sharia, regardless, just by accident that it happens to comply with your understanding or the understanding. That's just coincidence. They have legislated by something else.
I understand your point, but this is when you account the government, say how this law has come, you have to account on things which are on the table, not what they intend and what they believe or not believe. If they refer to Allah, they say because of this ayah and because of this, first of all, in the introduction to the law. If they don't, if they say this is taken from French law and so on, it's a clear declaration of war on Allah. We discussed that in the book of Tawheed. That's finished. That's gone. Even if it's happened accidentally to be the same, the law of Allah. But in that case, how to really solve it? And what's the limitation? Can this, is it within the authority of the government? It may be under certain condition, because this is usually left to the people to do it according to. But you have to scrutinize what are the rights and duties according to Sharia, well established, firmly well established, and remove all the accumulated tribalism, Hinduism, etc. from it, which is not the case. Was not done by Pakistan. But assume you have an Islamic government in principle and Islamic constitution and so on. Can something like this? I think it can. Especially, usually when we have our Islamic government now, it will be established in an area which was not Islamic before, or under occupation or generation of under Hinduism and so on. And the understanding is completely messed up. So you have to scrutinize what the real correct proper understanding, and possibly give the people the time of education and campaigning, and make agreement between the scholars. It has to be done socially first. That's how to do it in real life, in the correct way. Obviously, Pakistan neglected that, and they're almost 100 years now, 80 years alive as a government. Did they ever attend to that or take care of it? No. Did their mashayikh do that, anything in that direction? Clearly, no. So this is a problem. It's becoming a complex problem, because from the beginning, the founder himself wanted a state for Muslims, not an Islamic state. He has no concept of Islamic state. Muhammad Ali Jinnah was an Ismaili. For Ismailis, all these laws are just metaphorical. The Imam determines whatever it is. We know that. That's if he is even a practicing Ismaili. Most likely, we don't know what he is really. So he wanted a state for Muslims, because he thought or believed, or maybe moved by the British to think that Muslims cannot live with Hindus without the over control of the British. And at that moment, it was clear that there is no way the Muslim would take power again, like under the Mongols. And the Mongols were a very miserable power anyway, but at least nominally. So Muslim will be in danger, according to their annals, and the best way is to separate. The British wanted also to separate and encouraging this direction, because they knew if Muslims were in India, they will infect the Hindus and they will take the leadership, because they have some ideas about state and statecraft. Hindus are just private family religion. And then the Muslim will become dominant again, and they will take power. And now, in that generation, when they are about to leave, the masses of Muslims are educated and capable of taking power and control. It will not be like the Mongols, a corrupt family of Mongol, just symbolically, nominally Muslim, or genuinely Muslims. With deficiencies and so on, backwardness, but genuinely. Remember this, we're talking about the 30s and 20s. Muslim movements are there, Jamaat Islami, Tablighi established, and some scholarship of the last 19th century and so on is there. So a situation is much better than the time of the Mongols. Not ideal, but much better. So the British concludes that we will come back one day to India, but it must become so miserable that we will be able to reoccupy again. Maybe a century down the road, that's their dream. And for that, having the Muslims there will be an absolute bar. We cannot milk that cow for a few more centuries in the future. Yeah, that's it. So it's a very complicated situation. So you're inheriting such a situation. From the beginning, that state was not founding in any. And the same, the Bengali part, and the east part and the west part. They were never synchronized properly, and the leadership in the west, which is the most numerous at the time at least, failed really its duty to bring the people together, the hearts together. They used brutal methods, what you expect from a military government, of ignorance. And Mashayikh always give the example of in this century, when we have this big flooding, what the Mufti of the country, Nouri, what's his name, gives as a fatwa to overcome the calamity of the major flooding is doing Durut Sharif 70,000. That's his solution. If you have such a Mufti, then you have just to be despair. So the question is questioning something which does not make any sense. The reality, you are in another reality altogether. You have to do basic Islamization, Islamization of the constitution. What does it mean?
I mean, there's a couple of follow-on points to this as well. So because the issue, so this is the brother who's asking a question. He comments regularly. He says the issue is also covered with the doc. Are these laws being enacted due to Western laws, UNO Charter?
That's what all is only futile to discuss that. We don't know. But anyway, it should not have been enacted this way, number one, in details, nor in the federal. The Constitution itself, what does it say? No law will be enacted which is repugnant or contradicting Quran and Sunnah. That's not the way it's conclusion. That's not the way. That's not the way to have an Islamic constitution. No act, no law, no legislative procedure, or executive order, or law, or regulation, or budget, or even a constitutional article will be ever enacted, except if it has been derived probably from Quran and Sunnah mutawatira and well-established Sunnah. At least something like that. Of Quran Sunnah in abstract, in which Islam is represented. And then obviously scholars and the Palms have discussed what is meaning with Sunnah, what is, do we take only mutawatir, or take only ahad, which level of authenticity and so on. Like the reason which is there at the end of our Hizb Tajdeed constitution is that rules for derivating ahkam. Preempting, hopefully with something like that we can put in the constitution in the future as a constitutional law, as an appendix, rules for the derivation, with the hardcore usul there. And no derivation, it has to be derived from there. If it's not derived from there and they fail to that in a chain of logical argumentation, it has not repugnant. Repugnant is irrelevant. So if we don't have this level of maturity in the constitution, what do you expect? You're asking theoretical question which does not make any sense. Mm-hmm. People aren't. Okay. So my advice: go read the book of Tawheed and read also the basic law of the party of Hizb Tajdeed Islami. It's available. I think it's translated in English. The appendix, leave the party organization that may be imaginary for a full-scale, well-organized party, but the rules for driving that's the hardcore rules and definition are there. The hardcore rules and definition, and I'm editing it continuously, detecting that this sentence have to be tuned better, this and so on, so it becomes near perfect and formulated such that the lawmakers, the one who writes the law, can go to this and have a clear idea what is it, a very structured idea.
Okay, continuing on. Okay.
So these questions are empty, futile, essentially futile. They will not lead anywhere. But
I can see some practical importance because it's something that's going to be enacted and it's going to be applied in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I suppose the practical points. It's not zina.
That's definitely. It's an arbitrary law. No. And the issue with polygamy and so on. That's women should be educated that they have the right to put that in the contract. They don't know that. Nobody is telling them that. The one who do the marriage, they conclude the marriage, should read to them and give there's do you have condition number 1, number 2, number 4, etc. These are standard conditions, but commonly involved, and there are other extra if you want. And he discussed that with the other side if they accept. Many solutions are there. These guys, as if there's no solution. There are many solutions, excellent solutions. In the Madhab al-Hanafi is more. We have even the possibility in the Madhab al-Hanafi, which I think is a valid one, but you have to educate the woman about that and how to do it formally, is that she can have, or her father, obviously, or herself, ask for there to be the asma, the conclusion of marriage in her hand. So she have the power of divorce. But she must be educated then. The power of divorce in her hand is essentially making herself free. So she pronounced the following: I divorce, not you, I divorce you. That's wrong. I divorce myself from you, or I declare myself free from you. And then she has to have that idea of clearing. It is not a divorce, a standard one, so it's not counted from the 3. That's number 1. Has to be clear. If they are not even able to clarify the issue of 3 divorce and the usual divorce, the situation is so miserable.
Yeah, I mean, in the issue of Pakistan, because women have been so badly mistreated, and the scholarship side with, they don't even apply what Allah and His Messenger has revealed.
Maybe some of them, many of them, they don't know it.
Yeah, I mean, so the point is that this is state intervention to address a problem which the ulama should have fixed themselves.
Yeah, long ago, but it had not happened. Actually, they're part of the problem. So,
I mean, even in any way, I mean, like, for example, even in the, if you have the various Sharia.
Inshallah, when the Sharia compliant system is established, it will be something which similar to what we are proposing, at least derivation of the law and some skeleton of a constitution, which will be inshallah prepared in due course, bit by bit, or in the second generation if Ajal comes before that, and it will not be enacted less area than that. What area that will be when you get something piecemeal. You get Afghanistan, dark age, Zalami, as Sheikh Taqi used to say, Zalami's point of view, living in the dark ages. And they usually mention the joke about 7th century faqih asked by his student, Sheikh, he said, woman is awra. That's first, he thinks this is a hadith. No, it's not hadith now. It's a statement of Mas'ud, which is a wrong statement. Anyway. And that's from there. It's not a hadith marfu. Secondly, he said, the best thing to protect her, because she awra must be covered. You don't go naked with your genitals, so you have to cover. And the best thing to cover her is either a husband or the grave. And one student asked Sheikh, which one is better of the two? He said, the best is the grave. This is the mentality which you find in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and in India, in scholarship. But also to a certain part in the other. The Shia are much better in that, by the way, but they are not much better, but they are even much better. Especially the modern ones after Khomeini. So the ancient one were worse than that. And then we have Afghanistan. We have Pakistan nominally with the name Islamic Republic. That does not make them Islamic. And even this statement, no law will be repugnant. No, that's not the way it works in the Islamic law and the Islamic constitution. That itself is offensive. And secondly, we have Imam of Afghanistan, slightly better, but still in dark age concerning women. And other things there maybe sometimes even they have a lapse there.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. What is your thoughts on the theory of the proximity to Hinduism, that there are these sort of influence on the Deobandi school and any other school within that region? Because Hinduism is extremely harsh towards women, and people who live in that region, through Urf, it is certainly just seems that has influence, because you can come across Hanafis in Central Asia, in Iraq, in Syria, in Turkey, in Sham, who are completely different to the Hanafi understanding of the same madhab. Generally, there is an ijma' of the same madhab is across the region. But when it comes to the Hanafis or anyone in that region, it's a completely different and a lot of influence by Hinduism, including, for example, they consider Quran burning to be to be completely, it's a violation and sanctity and kufr, and rightly so, because the urf of that region is. But throwing it in the, in the Arab world, it's not that much. You know, that's the best way to expose something. So the urf of the Hinduism and their thing has significantly influenced the fatwas in that region.
Definitely.
Similar to
Also,
how
another thing,
the
another thing
translation of the awra, because in Arabic the awra, or they call the woman awrat. So the entire woman is awrat. So any fatwa based on the Urdu language books will significantly have.
In this point you're wrong. And that's based on that there's a hadith attributed to Ibn Mas'ud marfu', which is wrong, but the correct one is his statement. Woman is awra and she goes out, the devil will be happy. That's Ibn Mas'ud's statement. Ibn Mas'ud have his own oddities. We don't care. He's not a messenger. He's not infallible. Finish. Game over. But for them, that's become an idol. And there they adopted it, put it in front. Even it became the name for woman in their language.
Also, just another thing, you can also have a state, a reaction. So Hinduism was extremely permissive in terms, sexually very loose. So the Indian subcontinent is very, very much in the exact opposite direction when it comes to matters related to men and women relations. So you can have a reaction.
Not all Hinduism. Maybe Durga worship and so on. And they have this Durga day. You can't go through the window and have sex with any woman because we're celebrating Durga.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mixed up.
So ultimately, everything has to go back to the basics. Back to Kitab.
And for us, but this explain why they're infected with that. That's just historic, social psychology, social history, etc., regimes, and etc. That's but this is a secondary study. What we care is that what will be the optimal thing. So we have to formulate it the optimal way. So Pakistan, is it really an Islamic system in any sense? I would say no. It's a secular system, but because the other dissenters that make and the name Islamic about it does not. Afghanistan, yes, we could see, but dark age and mutilated. But excuse for that, for the people themselves, is that they are ignorant and they are just tribal, and they need education and getting all that. But if you look at generally in more other areas, all other areas are much better than Pakistan in all other areas. Next era, yes, again. But there, Khomeini obviously is coming to a people of 40 million his time. They all the clergy are living in an ivory tower or living in another world, waiting for the hidden imam and so on. Some of them are extreme regarding anyone striving to imama is a criminal and so on. And some half and half, and some forcing anyone who wants to establish a republic, like the one who forced that Pahlavi himself. Rida Pahlavi, the grandfather of this criminal, he wanted a republic. He was really close, have the inclination of what's his name, of Ataturk. He was Ataturkian. He was a nationalist. He was a racist nationalist, and forced him to become a king instead, to establish a kingdom against his wishes, and he accepted. Okay, no problem, and still did Ataturkian policies and so on. Anyway, Khomeini was forced. He has to breed some kind of parliament and semi-shura from the doctrine of Shias. And the only way to do it is Wilayat al-Faqih, which is a fallacy. I think he knew that's a fallacy. But the only way to get one step forward and get a Shia work in politics and join parliaments and so on, and regard government as somehow legitimate or party legitimate. So they never claimed they will be the pro-Islamic government, because according to Madhab, and they state clearly in the constitution that the Madhab al-Ja'fari is the Madhab of the Dawla. So it's a Ja'fari state, but not really an Islamic state in that sense. Then we have the big claims of Saudi Arabia. In time past, it was mixed with extremism and killing Muslims and leaving kafir, because they are less kufr and so on. That's the first Muhammad al-Wahhab, and having also major complete misunderstanding of Islamic governance. Otherwise, he would not have given that bay'ah to Muhammad bin Saud and established that Muhammad bin Saud will have the imama and inherit his seat, and Ibn Wahhab will have the mashiach and Zayd. So he established a Shi'a really. That shows his understanding of Islamic system is absolutely catastrophic. But you could say that's because of ignorance and so on at that time. But when Abdulaziz came, he adopted that because that's what the market was going, and then waited for the moment to turn it into clear kufr. And he started turning it bit by bit. Because he didn't care about that. He wanted a kingdom. That's it. Until they claim Islamic, they give that big title. We have nothing opposite the Quran and Sunnah and so on. And all what they have is absolutely contradicting Quran and Sunnah. And they have some baboons, Madkhali and so on, justifying that because they don't have graves. That's it. So there's no real Islamic entity in any sense. But there's some who are more closer and maybe be fulfilling some Islamic aspirations, certain areas, other more than others. That's it. But anyone who could say this is the model which will shake the world or really bring Islam really in the modern time in such a way that it really competes with the other, none. No, absolutely none. Absolutely none.
Okay. Next question is I'll make this the last one because it's getting a bit late.
So it's good to discuss it. They say, can Islamic State, what we mean with Islamic? A genuine Islamic entity? We don't have a genuine one. Since Hassan surrendered Khilafah to the Munafiq Kafir Muawiyah. Since then, we never had one. We have a good time with Umar ibn al-Aziz, but he could not even change the constitutional system. He may be intending, but he didn't give the chance. We got only 2 years, then he died on poison, most likely. But there's no reason to believe that someone dies 40 or 45 years old and there's no problem with health known for him and so on. It's most likely. But Umayyah poisoned him. There was an attempt of Al-Walid ibn Yazid ibn Al-Walid ibn Abd al-Malik. His father had absolute tyrant, the Wais of Bani Umayyah, or next to Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan. And he himself they call him Yazid al-Naqis. He's not Naqis, but his time was very limited. This one wanted to have shura and call people for election and things like that. This would have changed history. But they got rid of him, they killed him. There was a fight and they killed him. And then they got eliminated by the Abbasi, who came under an obscure claim, the most acceptable from the house of the Prophet. This claim is just to appease the people who are full of pain for that what happened to Al-Bayt and to Ali and so on. But just pain is not what you base state on, a state ideology. And also for why from the Al-Bayt. Doesn't make any sense. The elected Shura should have been called for. Yeah, Ibn Zubayr called for Shura, but it was just a political move because he wanted power for himself. He was power obsessed. So since Hassan abdicated, we have never had anyone there doing any real. And we see that, for example, discussed. You didn't attend with our circles, reviewing Arabic and so on books. When we discuss even Muhammad al-Fatih, the conqueror of Constantinople, we want to see does the hadith apply to him. We are now doubting the hadith is fabricated, because definitely he was not that good a prince as the hadith claim. I think the hadith is weak or fabricated, because he enacted constitutional statement that for the Khalifa is legitimate to kill his own brothers to save the unity of the state and the order of the world. Imagine. And either he forced or cooperated with him, the Fuqaha, and they allowed that to be a constitution. Nama, Shah Nama, or what his name, something Nama. If a Muhab here, he can tell us about that. So this is a very, very bleak history. Very negative history. Nobody ever is going back to the Medina constitution, the Act of Prophet Islam, what Abu Bakr, Umar, and so on. Although each one of them have one mistake here, mistake there, but in what is common about them, including Ali ibn Talib, what's common under them all the way, and plus what the Prophet has left, which is the binding one, absolutely, is completely different type of state. Completely beyond what you see anywhere in the world, even in democracies and so on. But it needs to be formulated and put as a philosophical base, and then human try to strive to be as close to it as at least formulated as a constitution. If you formulate a good constitution based on that, it could move more. Look, for example, the American Constitution is a good human effort to establish something which is not that what they have in Europe for almost 2,000 years. And it worked for several centuries, but it has fundamental problems because it doesn't have really a reference frame which has more or less structured main points. All what is there is just that humans are free, and they should establish a nation under God. That's not enough restriction to prevent that constitution to be abused and prevent. And the constitution was initially phrased even without even the various so-called amendments which contain the right, freedom of press, freedom of expression, freedom. They were not there at the beginning. They relied that's a self-understanding and so on. But it was a relatively good constitution, in matter of structure of the state, in matter of dividing of powers, accountability, and so on. But it turns out the type of human beings there, the time of religion and society, will mess that up. And we see that now. Some can mess around and get away with even clear corruption, market manipulation. There's no mechanism of accounting because they don't have a reference. If they were an Islamic reference for them, even if it's not a constitution, it's established with statute the limitation of the government about money and the imam using money and so on. There's no way he can even time of Umar, he enacted against all government himself that they don't engage in business and so on, and all their money should be registered and recorded before they enter the job. But that's not even now. Barely just enacted recently for the president, and not even in such a way that it can be enforced with a proper way. There's no enforcing mechanism and the possibility of suing to a court and removing the president for that. That's what David Umar al-Khattab done. So, but still, that experiment worked well. America enjoyed a good margin of freedom, a good elections, etc., less oppression, etc. No doubt about that. So imagine if something like that, even idealistically written down, and then life goes on. We'll try, shall to do that.
Okay.
I tried the draft constitution, but it has certain deficiency because of certain image of the state the Sheikh Taqi Rahmatullah had, which is wrong. He relied that Mawardi and Abu Ala al-Farra vision of the state is the correct one. He thought it is the correct. It's not. It's a mutilated version deduced from the miserable state of affairs in time of Abbasi. And they would try to find a framework which make that within Islam, not getting out to kufr level. That's all. Not the proper one it should be. Then at utmost far away frame. But this is lengthy. We can't. This needs lifelong discussion and work. And some of it has been done. A good portion done by Sheikh Taqi in the Islamic State and so on. But he fell victim of some classical errors and mistakes, which we can't free from it and then proceed one step at least further.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu.
Sheikh, two questions regarding 2 points you mentioned around two and a half months ago. First point, is it a credible fact in Islam that the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was already created before Adam? You touched upon this point around 2.5 months ago, but it's not clear for me if this is credible in mainstream Islam understanding or if it's
not credible. But the nur of Muhammad, this is the nur mentioned, Muhammad being a nur and mentioned nur is metaphorical, meaning he's a guidance. He's like a lighting guide, like lighting guide for tips and so on. That's number one. Secondly, all what is there is that I have been appointed the Khatamun Nabiyyin, and Adam is munjadilun fi tinati, is in his mud. Now, Adam was munjadil in his mud for 40 years, according to Abu Hurairah, which may be the 4 billion years of evolution. Which one is at the end of the mud or the beginning of the mud? There's no one. Secondly, how authentic and reliable is that? All that it can say that Khatam Nabiyyin was concluded that this species which we about to create it now, Allah told the angel, I will make a khaliqa or khalifa on earth who will be giving the authority to urbanize the earth and build it. And of course, استعماركم فيها. He is the one give you to live in استعمار, colonize the earth to this species, and this will be not for infinite time, it will be for a certain time, and there will be need for messengers, which can be anticipated and known at that time anyway, and there will be a final one in a suitable time. That's all the best interpretation you can do. It has to do with Noor, has to do with Braille, nonsense, all of this rubbish. The worst thing if they say the Noor is there even at the creation of the universe. There's no evidence from Quran or Sunnah for anything like that. except the theory of Jabr and Qadr and previous knowledge, which is faulty, we discussed earlier today. That's the first question. So this is nonsense. We don't need that. Well, you know, he's created the moment his father cohabited with his mother, and that's it. That's what we know for certain. And then was chosen a prophet there or before, we don't know.
Thank you, Sheikh. Second point, also what you mentioned, I found very interesting. You mentioned that the topic of marijuana being haram needs to be scrutinized and analyzed. I found that very...
And all other things need to be really scrutinized correctly. Is it really intoxicant? Some experiments have to be done.
Yeah, marijuana, I can say for certain, everyone I've ever known who's taken it, they're off their face. I had a friend who was just on a simple tube journey. He used to miss one tube. They go 2 stops and then because he was so out of it. So yeah, marijuana definitely is.
Yeah, I mean, it's common knowledge that it's classified.
Yeah,
but I just wanted to touch
maybe something
down.
I don't know.
Sorry.
Because there's a whole array of different drugs, but definitely marijuana, crack, heroin, all these things that make you.
No, because the Sheikh mentioned it needs to be scrutinized, so I found that interesting. If he can maybe elaborate, or he said if there's interest to make a separate
it needs to be scrutinized scientifically the correct way, like Khamr and so on.
Yeah,
that's. I mean, it's
because the classical scholar discussed what is iskar, and they said one said that a man cannot distinguish his clothes from the clothes of his wife. So he will dress himself in a woman's clothes and go out, not knowing that it's a woman's clothes. Then it is sukr. And anything which causes something like that. Does marijuana, we have to do testing and interview and maybe animal testing. And there are many ways to do that.
I mean, it's because this is a question of studying the reality. Anyone who's under the influence of marijuana, they can't even operate machinery. They are definitely not all there in terms of they call it monged out.
If it is true, if it is well established, because it's that an individual is like that, or the opposite in case of Khamr, there are individuals they can drink tons and they don't get intoxicated. So we have that. We see what is the majority and statistic that needs some better
than just. I understand where you're coming from, but this has been.
Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying. We need better scrutiny than just your experience or my experience. That's it. That's it. Because Khamr is well known.
A house down the road, you can do.
Khamr is well known. There's no doubt about that. It's well known, and people know that. When they first ask you something, we have a drink called mazar made from milk. You say, "Are you scared?" Say yes. Say, "Fahu haram." That's it. And the people know what the word yuskir. And the Quran says, "لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى حتى تعلموا ما تقولون." It's to get to the level you don't know what you are saying, and that you can't carry everything you are making in dua. Then this is iskar. That's clearly for Khamr, we know how it is, and experience is clear. And also we know experience from Khamr that when you drink Khamr and go back home, like most people from the pub, 51% of the beaten up wife is because of that. The barrier of beating the wife, not only the confusion of the clothes, beating up the wife, the barrier who's control that you control yourself from anger, that you don't ending beating your wife, which you in the wake state you will not do, is there. So many things. So there's other things have to have such a scrutiny. Is it for marijuana the same? Need to be scrutinized in a scientific way. Not Massari has this experience because some of his friends are marijuana smoker. I know many marijuana smokers. Nothing really indicates that they have any deficiency. As a matter of fact, with small amount, it seems to be people become more focused and so on. We don't know. It needs scientific work. That's what I'm saying. It needs more scrutiny. Period. Full stop. That's it.
Thank you, Sheikh.
We need scientific work. We need just blah, 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 blah. Is no good. It's no good to say blah, blah, blah.
If you want some volunteers, I can throw a stone and get 20 volunteers for research.
That's it. And then we see what is little, what's much, what causes intoxication. And that's what I gave for the Khamr, gave for liquid Khamr, say, ما أسكر كثيره فقليله حرام. And he gave a ما أسكر الفرق منه. الفرق is 4 liter roughly. If 4 liter is intoxicant, then any amount is haram.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is intoxicant for Khamr for 4 liter? We found by the research and we did for and also lab research that something which is essentially more than 0.5%. So you could have up to 2% of alcohol. It will not make a scar. It will not make a scar. So many of the beers, many of juices that people are discussing here, Ribena has 0.01, etc. alcohol naturally. Orange juice has some 0.05 or something alcohol. It's not haram. Because if you take a farq, it will not intoxicate you. If you took more than farq, you will die on dilution of the blood, not on khamr. So that's not muskir. So it is depending upon the percentage in the drink. If you boil the khamr, so if most of it is evaporated, it is not khamr anymore. As done by Umar also, demonstrated by Umar. So here we have a clear thing. We need a clear thing there. No, that's what I'm saying. Nothing else. Not marijuana is halal or not halal. No,
I got that. It's about the elaboration.
I have no elaboration. Go to labs and work on it if you're interested.
Okay.
And if the governments work on that, then they have to do it properly, not just by waving arguments hearsay. That doesn't work this way. Yeah.
Shukran, Sheikh.
Yeah.
Okay, just a quick one before we go to the somebody's asked, who assassinated King Faisal? Do you have any theories on this? Any anecdotes about it?
What we know is that his nephew, and for revenge for his brother is I think Faisal bin Musa'id. His brother Khalid bin Musa'id was involved in issue attacking the television station. Khalid bin Musa'id became overtaken by Wahhabi. There was a religious wave coming starting in the 60s. They called the beginning of the so-called Sahwa of the revival. Because there was a time before that, Islamic symbolism and so on, after the Khilafah was abolished and so on, even before that, from the beginning, even before the beginning of the century, when the Ittihad and Taraqi, the Young Turks took in Turkey, Islamic practice and so on was forsaken and then was really actively fought against. Even Arabic language was fought against by the Turks. So when the people say Khilafah Uthmaniyya was Islamic until 1924, like Hizb said, it's just a fallacy. It's an attempt to make it as close as possible to encourage the people to work for it. It ceased to be Islamic in any sense in 1850, roughly, with Abdul Majid al-Awwal enacting his first laws, which clearly anti-Islamic. So that, but even before that was a miserable. After that was clear kufr, open kufr. So that is we don't know. So there was no practice. It was accumulated, and then there was the backlash after the Second World War, and the Ikhwan Muslim were established in Egypt. There was a way back. Actually, before that, Hassan Banna started, was going back to Islam and so on. In just general terms, very amorphous as well, and has made it more precise and so on. And that's reached Najd. And it was then the people, what's available there were the classical Mashayikh from Wahhabi persuasion. And they were usually what they are focused on, beard, short thobe, a woman, cover, niqab, and all these things. Well, it became obsessed with that. And no television, no kada, no songs, the same old problem. So trivial things. This one is from Al Saud. He's a very nice chap. He was just in school. He was the school speaker when the king visits. So we used to visit the king because we were next to the palace, and he used to come almost every morning to stand in the morning what they call it, line up to go to school. And sometimes we shook his hand. It was a big hand, I remember. Sometimes we kissed his hand, was like a father figure. He was a nice man as a person, and he visits in every occasion. Visits the school because some of his children there. They were very difficult to control. But the head of the school had an authority for him to beat them up, and he was beating them up like donkeys and even locked them overnight. the mother sent him, please leave. No. Beat them for her. Anyway, and he's appreciated this. No. You go to Uthman al-Salih because you have spoiled the kids. Anyway, that's like family, really. So he was... And then who speaks? Because he was good looking. Khalid was very good looking, very handsome, fair colored. I'm regarded as dark in Saudi Arabia. Like most people of Najd are like is less than his color, but he was fair colored, but still like an Arab. And so on. Not like a European, not blonde. We do not have many blondes in Al Saud. They were whose mother are usually from Circassia, from Georgia, from Syria, and so on. And he was the speaker. He was very eloquent. It seems to be after I left to Germany for studying, he seemed to be has been obsessed, left the school, and was in the halqa of Ibn Baz. At that time, Faisal, who is himself deep inside the secular, actually, he was admiring Ataturk, by the way, and so on. Like Fahd, and they don't dare say that publicly, starting television. And in television, they won, obviously, American movies and so on, with women semi-naked and so on at the time. Fashion was there, bikinis were there. That was very offensive for the general public. So with a simple-minded way, commanding good and forbidding evil, he, with a group, attacked the television or threatened to attack the television. Faisal ordered a commander of the police at the time, Ben Halal, I think was his name, if I remember correctly. That's all on record. So if I didn't remember the name, you can check it. To prevent the attack, and if necessary, to stop them by force. Khalid did not bother and attacked, and that there was some kind of exchange of fire, and he was killed in that occasion. And Faisal, to add insult to injury, covered for the commander because it's killing on his command. And he wanted to give an example that you cannot rebel against me. I am absolute. And sending a message to the Mashayikh also. And this rebellion should not be done. Commanding Guru is different. The usual argument and the tongues, the early pseudo-Madkhali started coming forward. Anyway, that's it. His brother Faisal was studying in America. I was waiting for study after that. And also another additional point of importance, their mother, both of them, is from Al-Rashid, the rivals of Al-Saud of North and Hayy, from Shammar. That's also some political position. And all his uncles, like Talal Rashid and so on, they were imprisoned for some time and released. I knew them here in London, in Paris. Roughly, I'm just giving it a rough. So there's certain political implications from another side. That's the reason they were detained, but most likely was suspicion of Al-Saud. And their father is a blind man, Musa'id bin Abdul Aziz. So Khalid bin Sa'id, the first of Sa'id, son of Musa'id, the son of Abdul Aziz. And known to be blind man, known to be pious in the classical way, from home to masjid and so on. Not known to be that much of a corruption. And his wife from Al-Rashid, who are relatively, especially the woman in Najd, are generally more pious and committed. So very, very good people, simple people at the corner, not politically active. When the son went to America, we heard news that he was loose, drinking, having girlfriends, and so on. And it seemed to be these stories. We don't know if this confirmed or maybe it's somewhere. These girls he told them the story and his pain and so on. When he's drunk, obviously, men become loose with women, and drunk, they open their legs. But they thought it's there, and women are good at extracting. And this happened, and Faisal did that to my brother, neglecting that we are from Al-Saud, and that's his nephew. And it seemed to be the story is that these women were somehow CIA implants instigating him, telling him, you should take revenge. You should not you are from Al-Saud. You know, why should be Faisal better than your father? Just because he's blind, etc. It seems he is be charged, allegedly, when there. After coming back, obviously, the other cousins and so on, also charging him because of tribal reasons, because family reasons, whatever complicated. You know, in life, you have all these problems in the family and so on. And then, one day he went to meet the king, and because from Al-Saud, he was not scrutinized very much, touched, and was able to access and pull a gun and shoot him. That's what happened. Is this behind that a plot? The fact that with the American girlfriends and there may be CIA implants is not to be neglected. Some people say, but Faisal was quite anti-American, although playing the game, because he knows at that time, because he's very close to the Jews, and a very deep and good connection to the Jews and Zionism. And at that time, especially in his time of power, the one in power was essentially Johnson. And Johnson was, for some reason or another, involved in, seems to be now, the information coming out now, with what Trump has released, was involved somehow directly in the assassination of Kennedy. Whatever the reason for assassination is the financial reason or reason that he was about to rein Israel in the nuclear program or rein them in political reasons, we don't know, which is very credible, especially in the nuclear. He was very upset about nuclear capabilities of Israel, and who got assassinated from Jewish factions from the CIA, MI6, and the CIA was never a clean organization. It has various heads and various sections. Anyway, and also in cooperation with mafias, including this mafiosi from New York, who is a real estate man who is a Jewish. There is a Jewish mafia in New York. Not only in politically active, they're also active in blackmail, embezzlement, and so on. Is well known. You can find it in the papers. It seems to be Johnson is implicated. So anything related to Israel and so on, he's willing to accept. That's the reason he covered up for the Liberty issue and the bombing of Liberty and ordered the planes back. All of these things is because Johnson is held, as we say in Arabic, in the testicles by some Israeli agents. So it's not impossible that, despite what apparently seems to be that Faisal has very good relation with Johnson and even wrote to him about the Egyptian army and the need to annihilate it, all of these things, secretly, obviously, that have come out now. That he is ultimately really an Israeli MI6 man and British man, not an American. Then when the time came right, the other wing, the military industrial complex, which gained a little bit more power with Nixon, decided this man is dangerous. We cannot leave him, because if he gets away, he will weaken the American influence inside Saudi Arabia. Besides, stand by, there are pure American agents like Fahad and like the Sidairi and so on. So that may be behind that. It may be just pure personal revenge of this guy. And the story of these girls as being implants. He has girls. No, there's no doubt. There are pictures of that and in clubs and things like that. There's no doubt about that, which is expected because most young people there were quite loose and have girlfriends and drink and so on. Especially also are more loser than the others in the average. Not everyone, in the average. So ultimately, could be this, it could be this. Just internal family base. Based on that, obviously, it happened. They doubted first Al-Rashid because the mother of these two guys, the one that said Ilya, and this one is from Al-Rashid. So, because the mother cannot be approached, a woman as off limit in that situation, but his uncles, Talha Rashid and Muhammad Rashid, they were taken detention. Not all of them. One was left outside as like a conduit to keep somehow not complete declaration of war on Al-Rashid. We cannot afford that also for the balances of power inside the family, and many of them are from Al-Rashid and so on. At least from Shambar, like Abdullah is not from Al-Rashid, but from Al-Ali. So very messy situation. So they detained some and left some outside. So that, if that answers your question, the rest has to be studied and scrutinized properly. Again, people devoted to history, and they have to get the American documents and the British documents, which are kept secret until now, and they may be kept for another century. Because the way documents in Britain are formulated are, but in America also there's some strictness. For example, there's some documents related to legal issues in the 19th century, or 1840 or so, just court ruling concerning the ownership of certain places. For some reason, sensitivity, I don't know what is it, until now, they are still under privacy protection. Until now, some people try to access it. It's not possible until now. Over a century later, still they are not accessible. So, Allahu Alam, we don't know.
Okay.
Next.
Okay, Doc, I'm just conscious of the time. Now, this is very important. Okay. I've got one last thing before we do the Pakistan updates. Okay. This is hot off the press. There's a person called Adnan Rashid, who's a good da'i when it comes to affairs of non-Muslims, but he's become very much on a takfir of Shia, singling out Iran heavily. I personally think, Adnan, I think you're compromised, because if you call out Iran and you don't call out UAE, you're compromised. Business interests.
Well, don't think to discuss any further.
Yeah. Anyways, but I mean, but he's part of IERA, who do plenty of good work. But recently, this has just come up. So Mohammed Hijab has been doing a channel with he's been on Sneeko's show. So Sneeko is a revert. You met him once at an event, but I don't think you'll remember him. You know, obviously you couldn't see him properly. He did a joint thing where he's talking about the issue of unity and things like that. So Adnan Rashid, or as I call him, Adnan Pajit, he says anyone who makes takfir of Abu Bakr, Uthman, Rajlan is a kafir. 2. Anyone who makes takfir of Aisha Rajlan is a kafir. Question mark for both of these. Anyone who deems Ali Rajlan superior to Ibrahim, Musa, Isa alayhi salam is a kafir. Please answer specifically, yes or no. Yeah.
No,
then he continues with this.
No.
Let me just finish this here.
What do you
These
mean?
are confirmed. Let me just finish this here. These are confirmed mainstream 12er Shia beliefs. If the answer is no, then Hijab himself becomes a kafir for denying the water of reports by where these people are promised Jannah by the Prophet ﷺ. Denying the water is denying Quran. If the answer is yes, then we are in agreement. To which Hijab says, Hijab himself becomes a kafir if you hold such strong views based on your strict adherence to the dawah that you follow. Why did you refuse face to face? Okay, this is just a thing. But anyways, what's your views on him making takfir based of someone not making takfir on these 3 points?
First of all, this making of the making of the is not a mainstream. It's not a mainstream Shia position. It's some extreme Shia have this. Some Imam have it, some do not have it, and usually Maraji do not get involved in that because they don't want to endanger the khums which coming to them, although they know otherwise. So this is a very school area. Theoretically, concerning السابقين الأولين, المهاجرين والأنصار, they are the eye of the Quran. They said not promised by the Prophet. Of course, they not promised them anything. This is just single ahad. But what established is that Sabiqun Awwal al-Muhajirin wal-Ansar, they are definitely going to end in the paradise. And those who follow them by good deeds, by ihsan. So with the condition of ihsan. The others are done. And the Badri also. So if anyone knows that they are Badri, and they are from Sabiqin Awwalin, which is without doubt, but the German theory about what they said under the Shia, these Akhbari, they claim Abu Bakr Umar were involved in the Aqaba and attempt to assassinate the Prophet. So they say they committed Ridda, and they don't connect it to the ayah. And nobody argued in the structured way. If you argue someone in structured way, and this one after the argument and the Hujjah insists, then he become a kafir because he's rejecting the Quran and accusing the Prophet as being an impostor. That's the reason for it. The Quran is not from Allah. But after the argument, and this argument in this structured way is not even done with the people of Sunnah. It's number one. They say about Ali that he's superior to Ibrahim and the other prophets. What's the meaning of superior? What the Shia position is that Ali is superior to the Khalifa al-Rashidin and he's more worthy of Khalifa, or they betrayed him and stabbed him in the back. There's various levels of step. I am not aware of anyone claiming except someone who regard him somehow as divine or superior to Muhammad. And this is clear kufr. Nobody is discussing that. And the Shia themselves, they say. So he makes this Adnan Rashid makes such a statement in such a way who shows that he does not know how these things work properly and did not review the issue there. Well, plenty of ignorance there. Yeah.
He's hell bent on defending his Wahhabi affiliates.
That's not even what the Wahhabi are saying. The Wahhabi say Sab al-Sahaba, insult the Sahaba generally. No insult of anybody or using names and so on is except for Allah and His Messenger. And this is the end of Surah Al-Hajj is clear. Those who harm or insult Allah and His Messenger, they are cursed in dunya and akhirah, and they will have a degrading punishment. That's for kuffar. And who insult believer without that they have end, they have committed a buhtan and ithm mubin. They committed a sin and they will be accounted in dunya if they can bring an evidence for their buhtan. Like you say, this one committed zina and you have evidence, you'll get the rashid, etc. In the case of buhtan.
Okay.
But without buhtan, it is ithm. So for believer generally, including Sahaba. So I'm giving Sahaba their more rank than should be. And then the question, who are these Mubashirin for Jannah? There are many Mubashirin, not only these 10. And there's no evidence that these 10, into every one of them is superior to the rest of one. Not necessary. And there's no way to rank them in any way, in matter what they mean superior, in what's superior. In statecraft, maybe Ali is superior to some of them because they were not sent to be having statecraft and run a government. He may be superior. What they mean superior? Superior in ranking Allah? That's not possible. Because the ranking is clear. من أعلمهم النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين. And explicitly, Allah said, anyone saying I am better, meaning either himself or the one who's saying that. There's a controversy with the scholar. What's the meaning of that? أنا خير من. So Yunus ibn Matta, because Yunus ran away from the message and committed a major crime, but he repented from that. Otherwise, he would have been even losing prophethood and so on. Whoever say, I am better than Yunus ibn Matta, he's a liar. Most likely the Ana, meaning the messenger of Allah. So Allah does not want to say, who will claim Muhammad is better than Yunus ibn Matta, but say Ana. So no one is entitled to that. Addressing everyone, including Abu Bakr and Umar. So even if he's Ana, the one who is talking, not the messenger of Allah. Or the stronger point is the messenger of Allah. So don't, and he ordered, don't make a ranking between the prophets. لا تفاضلوا بين رسول الله. With the dispute having been Abu Bakr and the Jew, who said, وَالَّذِي فَضَّلَ مُوسَى على العالمين. So when he's superior to Muhammad, the Jew say yes. And Abu Bakr slapped him, and the Jew went complaining to him. And the Prophet rebuked Abu Bakr about this tafdeel. And he gave a reason for that even. Putting Abu Bakr in his place. Don't indulge in this. This does not bring anything good. Tafdeel ranking is in the hand of Allah. We don't know who is ranked higher than who. And who is superior, who is inferior. Allah will rank the people.
Okay. All right, inshallah. So for supporters of Muhammad Hijab, you know, inshallah, if you need us to do anything, more than welcome. We'll help in any way we can, but this Wahhabi menace needs to be put an end to in terms of their understanding, their takfiri mentality.
What about who allow the kuffar, which is worse than, which is evidence of Quran clearly. وَتَوَلَّهُمْ مِنْكُمْ وَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ.
Adnan, it doesn't matter what your business interests are.
لا تتخذوا اليهود والنصارى أولياء بعضهم أولياء بعض ومن يتولهم منكم فإنهم إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقات in another place لا يتخذوا المؤمنين الكفار أولياء من دون المؤمنين إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقات. And Ibn Abbas explained that you live in their domain and you have permanent residency, or that's where the covenant of security comes from. Except that you will be whoever does that has broken the Allah. ما يفعل ذلك فليس من الله في شيء. Has no difference. Broken relation, completely broken. It is كافر then. مجموعة الكافرين. إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقات ويحذركم الله. Allah warns you. Don't play with the tuqat. It has a very limited meaning. Just carry the citizenship. You don't fight them, you don't fight you. But you don't join them in the fighting Muslims. All this will be red card out. But that's discussed in the book of Mu'ala and Mu'ala. So that's for everyone. Shi'i, Sunni, Hindi, whatever it is. Buddhi, member of the Communist Party. That's it.
Ironically, I mean, Abdul Wahab knew this better than this donkey.
Abdul
Wahab
this is what the Emirates prompt the people so they can use it against Iran. But if you use it
Adnan, how much money did they give you? Adnan, how much money? How much money is it worth? How much money is it worth being quiet on Sudan? There is a woman who was sheltering her children. Nobody knows what happened to her. She's likely exterminated along with 2,000 other people in Fashar. What is your Imam telling you about that? Why can't you say one word against UAE? One word against UAE, you nefarious Uber driving Bajit, you despicable sycophant.
So this he is just taking words which at face looks very outrageous and so on, but doesn't know what the condition of takfir. Is that an ignorant one who doesn't know that about?
Sheikh, this is the same guy who believes that this is a historian who buys into Nobakhti. This is a historian. Adnan, I heard you used to drive a bus. Check if your license is still valid, yeah? Because I think you need to go back to riding a bus if that's your level of history. You compromised sellout. Your UAE government, who you glaze, you were talking about their library in such glowing terms.
These issues can be discussed. If someone did that after knowing what the Quran says about the Sabiqin Awwalin and what came by Tawatur from the Messenger of Allah, if he does that after that, then clearly he's a kafir. Then he's rejecting the messengerhood, or he misunderstands. They explain him what is the meaning of the Mutawatir about Allah telling the people, do whatever you want, I'm going to forgive you. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that haram has become halal for them. It means something else. But you have to analyze it. And Sabiqin Awwalin.
And the way he termed it was just like all Shia believe this, etc., etc. Removed Udhr bin Jahil, just like his. Well, actually, that part is actually consistent with Abdul Wahhab, the Takfiri, max murdering sociopath. Selective. Anyway, selective when it comes to ruling by kufr.
The way things are presented in such an offensive way that it causes a shock for the other side. But it's not the way things about kufr and iman should be treated. But there will be so many. For example, Albani has declared the hadith to us. I did not verify. I didn't care about verifying it. That Aisha was one day obviously upset about something, and Abu Bakr was present. He said, "Tell this one who claims to be the messenger of Allah." Abu Bakr lost his patience and slapped her, so she got a nose bleeding. Who claims to be a messenger of Allah? And what the messenger of Allah said, "Ya Abu Bakr, don't you know the woman who is in a fit of jealousy because this is related to another woman or something like that? Jealousy does not know the distinction between the valley on the top of the mountain. She's blinded by jealousy. So this utterance is irrelevant. Doesn't make any sense. It's a state of anger. Her mind is not present."
Okay, Doc, a quick one. We'll start the Palestine update. Before we do, just a quick one. Just off
Albani declared to say, I don't know if Sarih or not. I didn't scrutinize. I don't care about it. If you want to, you can scrutinize it. So that's the way it works. It's clear that she's in a fit of anger. She's outraged. She's a very jealous woman. That's very well known. She's a problem in jealousy. Most of his life have been messed up with the jealousy. And Abu Bakr lost his composure. Imagine your place. We will do almost like the same. They could not control himself. The Messenger of Allah controlled himself because he's infallible. He's the one who broadcast the message. He slammed her. And she started Ra'af. Ra'af is a nose bleeding. Yeah. And they were just trying to fix her. But don't you know if a woman is in a fit of jealousy, she does make a distinction. I use the material example between the top of the mountain and the valley. She cannot distinguish them. So what she utters is nonsensical anyway. You cannot account it. The same with the Adnan Donker Rashid. That's the problem, is that these people bring something abstract as if it's in behind the moon. It's not that it's uttered by people in reality. If it's uttered this way, you can ask him, don't you know that he's from Sabiqin Awwalin? And the ayah, when the ayah was revealed, was he still from Sabiqin Awwalin?
All of this, we know why it's happening, Doc.
Yeah.
It's all happening because the UAE masters want it to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And the time passed.
How much money? How much did they pay you?
Accumulation of similar problems accumulated with time after time.
Could be money, or he's retarded.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go into Palestine update in a second. Just a very couple of quick bits of news. So Iran has to cut Iranian enrichment to 0.7. Qatar releases 6 billion. Trump threatens to block Iranian negotiators from returning home. He warned Iranian officials they won't even make it back home if Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz. This is from Coin Bureau reported.
Then it will be war. Then the Mujtaba Khan will tell you, I told you, these people are not trustworthy, and they will break their word. And then they went there and claimed, the Caliban, they say, we are going to discuss the Strait of Hormuz and what's happening in Lebanon. That's a condition before discussing the nuclear issue. Nuclear issue will be later. What did they agree? They agreed or refused to 2.5%? They
said in one thing. This is a follow one. Said 0.7%. But the thing is,
who said wanted? Did Iran agree to that or refuse?
This is a statement from Coin Bureau. You know, this is because he carries news. It says Pakistan says Iran's enrichment will be reduced from 60% to 0.7.
Who said it and was agreed or not?
Pakistan carried this because they're the negotiators. Okay, but okay. Besides from that, but the fact that Trump can say publicly that they won't be able to return, that's quite an escalation as far as even in a point of diplomacy. That's kind of sounds quite unprecedented. That your negotiators, you're threatening them.
We'll see the repercussions. We'll see the repercussions.
But that is quite, no matter how bad they can be, to threaten your negotiators openly and publicly.
It's clear he's not willing to he's not able to confront Netanyahu on the Israeli lobby.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, just that alone, in terms of being so volatile, I'm just not aware of anyone who would.
It's irrelevant. Is volatile. The action now of Iran should be clear. Now, I'm certain that the Revolutionary Guard will continue the policy now. Only the Iranian ships are going out, and obviously the blockade has been lifted. Then Trump has to either reenact the blockade and then destroy the whole agreement, or find another solution. And we'll see what the next steps here.
Okay, John. So that's just for information. So obviously we don't need to incorporate this as a Palestine update because it's not fully.
But we'll check if the news is self-correct, because many rumors are coming out and cross and so on.
Inshallah. Okay, so without let's go on to the